I call to order this regular meeting of the Scottsdale Unified School District Governing Board. Today is April 9th, and the time is 6 p.m. I want to welcome everyone, lots of everyone's. It's great to see all. Can you hear me? The microphone's not working. Testing, testing. No? Hello? Testing?
Test.
Nope. Mine doesn't work either.
Testing, testing?
No. There we go. Wait.
No? Oh,
There
there we go.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to try this one more time. Everybody, welcome. All right, I'm going to call to order this regular meeting of the Scottsdale Unified School District Governing Board. Today is April 9th, 2024, and the time is now 6:01 p.m. And again, welcome to all of you. It's great to see all of your faces. What a beautiful opening act there. And they're going to continue and honor us with a singing of the national anthem. If you could please stand. Oh, I need to do a roll call real quickly. From my far right.
Karen Warner. Amy Carney.
Julie Sanowski.
Zach Lindsay.
And Libby Hartwells, we have a quorum, and now we may stand. Thank you. Thank you to the Gold Dust Avenue a cappella group of Chaparral High School. That was beautiful. All right, we have a number of items before we move to approve the agenda. One amendment would be removal table and for a future agenda. Item 8D as in dog. The following items to remove from the consent agenda to be discussed individually. Items 7K, 7I, and Ms. Carney, you have advised that you would like to pull the item 7H, personnel action items. Could you please specify which item in the personnel items that you would like to discuss so that we can only remove that one item or items that you'd like to discuss?
I think Board Member Warner is the one pulling that item.
Could you please identify which item or items specifically in the personnel items packet that you'd like to discuss?
Yes, Miss Amy Palpatucci.
You would like to pull the resignation for Ms. Palatucci from item 7H. Otherwise, the remaining items are fine. All right, so with respect to 7H out of consent agenda, it will only be the item, personnel item of the resignation to accept or not Ms. Palatucci's. I make a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you.
Dr.
Mr.
Hartwells, can you re-clarify the consent agenda?
The consent agenda items to be amended are polling 7H only with respect to the proposed resignation of Ms. Palatucci. Item 7I, the approval of the revised job description of the district athletic director. And item 7K, the approval of salary schedule for all employee groups.
Thank you, President Dr. Hartwells.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. If we could, all those in favor to approve the amended agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, that motion passes. All right. I'm going to read the meeting decorum. Citizens attending and/or participating in Scottsdale Unified School District meetings, either in person, virtually, or telephonically, are required to observe the same rules of order and decorum applicable to the members of the governing board and staff. Unauthorized remarks or demonstrations from members of the audience, yells, outbursts, and/or other disruptions are not permitted. All right, we're now going to turn to the best part of our night. Dr. Menzel, if you'd like to present the staff and student recognitions and celebrations this evening.
Well, good evening, President Hartwells, Vice President Lindsay, and members of the governing board, and welcome to all of our guests, staff members, family, friends, students. It's really a joy to be able to celebrate this evening. I apologize that it's a little warm. We do have people working on it. But at this point in the school year, the celebrations of our students, staff, and schools come fast and furious. And while we aren't able to bring all of them to the governing board meeting, isn't it wonderful for our community that there are so many? We have 9 celebrations to share with you this evening in our April sampling of achievements, and I have the honor of kicking things off. I would like to start by inviting Principal Mills, along with Assistant Principal Aaron Scagnali, Mountain Lion Cubby students, teachers, and parents to please come forward to the podium. And Ms. Cerna, can you join them at the podium, please? You all look fantastic in those outfits. As you will have heard by now, but it certainly bears repeating, the Desert Canyon Elementary School has been named a 2024 Arizona Educational Foundation A+ School of Excellence. It is fortuitous timing. The designation just happens to coincide with the celebration of the school's 25th anniversary. And I guess that just means we get to celebrate twice. Undertaking the A+ process is daunting. It requires the close collaboration of teachers, parents, and students. Schools put their practices and culture under a microscope to evaluate what's working and where there is room for improvement. The journey is illuminating and serves as a framework for improvement, regardless of whether A+ recognition is received. As you likely know, Desert Canyon is the starting point for the SUSD Mandarin Chinese Dual Language Immersion Program, offering general instruction in English and the beginning in kindergarten of a Mandarin path of study. Principal Mills, could you please tell us a bit about who is here with you this evening? And I think the students have something they would like to share with our audience. We get a turn.
There we go. All right. Good evening, President Hartwells, Vice President Lindsay, and governing board members, and Dr. Menzel. This evening, we have our staff. We have classified staff, our teaching staff. We have our students, parents joining us this evening. But if I could say a few words, I'd like to start off by thanking the governing board for your support and also sharing our gratitude to Dr. Menzel and Ms. Cerna for your support to Desert Canyon Elementary. And also a huge shout out to our school community for their amazing support for our students. And together they achieved the well-deserved A+ School of Excellence, which speaks to their commitment together. So very proud of our staff.
And students, do you have something you want to perform this evening? All right. You are the stars of the show right now. Oh, we cannot hear the video. Are we going to be able to start that over with sound? What a fantastic job, students. We are so grateful that you shared what you're learning with us. And this evening, I'd like to ask Ms. Cerna to present the principal and assistant principal with challenge coins in recognition of this outstanding A+ designation.
With our utmost congratulations, and I hope you all know how special your school is to me. And I'm so proud of you both, and congratulations to the children and to the entire staff for your A+ designation.
So while you're welcome to stay for the rest of the governing board meeting, we'd actually like for you to go outside and get your picture taken so that we can celebrate this moment, and then you are free to go home. We'll take just a minute and give them a chance to move. And while they're stepping out, I would like to invite Ms. Cerna back to the podium to continue our celebrations this evening. She has two more to recognize.
Don't touch the mic. Okay. Good evening, President Hartwells, Vice President Lindsay, governing board members, Dr. Menzel, and Mrs. Wagner. This evening, I would like to introduce you to a budding artist from Yavapai Elementary School with Jose Hernandez Salgado, gifted teacher Laura Matera, and Principal Kelly Perry. Please join me at the podium. Come on, buddy. I should have brought my Yavapai. Okay, come on, stand here so they can see you. Okay. Last year, to help celebrate Arizona's 111th birthday, the Arizona Historical Society created a postcard making contest for third graders. Of course, the contest involved learning too, with lessons and activities to support the state's third grade Arizona history standards. In March, the Hysterical Society selected 10 winners in the 2024 competition, and the design drawn by this young man standing next to me was amongst them. If you could please take a look up there. If that doesn't truly reflect what Arizona is about, sun, cacti, cactus wren, the state flag, and a bald eagle, I don't know what does. And this beautiful drawing has now been turned into a postcard. Hold it up so I can see it. Did you bring this for us to look at? Oh, he's got some postcards for us. All right. These are beautiful. Where, do you know where they'll be on sale? Because I want to buy some.
At the Arizona Historical Society.
At the Arizona Historical
Nearby,
Society.
too, right at
All right.
Capitol Park, I think.
We'll be heading there to buy some, okay? Congratulations, Jose, on your winning postcard. And thank you, Miss Matera. Miss Wish, oh, this is her, okay? And Mrs. Perry for providing Yavapai third grade classes with this opportunity. Let's give them a great big hand. This is for you to keep forever. And this is for you too.
Okay, awesome job.
Congratulations.
Great,
Mom
we're
and
all
Dad.
done. You did it.
All right. All right, good job. Okay, buddy? Right. Thank you, everyone. Okay, this is getting fun. Okay, our second elementary celebration this evening is one of our fabulous principals and a good friend of mine, whom I have the privilege to supervise. Would Principal Matt Patzloff please come up? We've known for some time that Mr. Pasloff brings strong leadership to his school. Buffalo students and staff have benefited greatly from his direction, opening up new avenues and exciting opportunities in teaching and learning. Then there was the small matter of an overnight fire in August of 2018, when Navajo was forced to relocate the Oak campus for 2 years, with Mr. Patzloff overseeing every challenge presented and was ready to open on, what, the second day? Back at their home campus now, Navajo is strong, healthy, and growing. And it's the city of Scottsdale that is recognizing Mr. Patzloff's work now and how he translates into a thriving Scottsdale neighborhood. Last month, the city named him the recipient of its 2023 Spirit of Scottsdale Award, honoring him at the City Council meeting. Congratulations, Mr. Patzloff. Thank you for everything you do for your students, teachers, staff, and making us so proud that you are one of SUSD school leaders. Please, my friend, accept this challenge coin and our thanks.
Congratulations, Matt. We're very proud of you. You truly deserve the Spirit of Scottsdale recognition. Keep up the great work. Next, to introduce the next celebration, Dr. David Perniske, SUSD's Director of State and Federal Programs. Dr. Perniske.
Good evening. Can I please invite Dr. Rand from Redfield Elementary, Kat Hughes, and Ms. Tully from Echo Canyon up to the podium, please. President Hartwells, members of the board, Dr. Menzel, Ms. Wagner, and guests, we are thrilled tonight to celebrate the incredible achievements of two of our Scottsdale schools, Redfield Elementary and Echo Canyon. As you are aware, last fall we announced our Fall Cohort Innovation Grant recipients, and they are excited to share their project impact reports this fourth quarter. This past January, we opened the Innovation Startup Grants again and awarded 2 more as part of our Spring Innovators cohort. Congratulations and a round of applause to Redfield Elementary School and Principal Dr. Amanda Rand. Their project is titled Botify the Classroom, Enhancing Education Through Coding Bots. This innovation will empower Redfield students to learn coding and robotics. At this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Rand to just say a few words about her vision for this project.
Thank you so much. We're so excited and want to thank everybody here at SUSD, and thank you for choosing us. We're so excited. I want to introduce my RoboForce teachers. Please wave. These are the ones that are going to be taking on this initiative. We are going to be purchasing Ozobots, which are small, itty-bitty, simple coding bots for our school that will be in classroom kits. Those classroom kits will be able to meet the needs of all kindergarten through 5th grade students. So every single student at Redfield will be touched with these. And so these wonderful teachers have decided and chosen, and I'm so excited to have so many who've said, we are going to take on this initiative, we're going to learn about these bots, and we're going to teach our teachers. So these are going to be our trainers, we're going to teach our teachers, and then they are going to bring them into the classroom. So our hope is that these children at Redfield will become cardinal coders. They're going to learn about coding. Our hope is that they will become robotics students at DCMS, and then in the future they will have job opportunities because of what you have provided for us. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Rand. Also, a big round of applause for Echo Canyon School Principal Hughes and teacher Kelly Tully. Congratulations, their successful application titled Tech Tinkers Junior Engineers Workshop. This innovation will give Echo Canyon students the chance to explore engineering, design, and technology through project-based learning. To tell us a little bit more, please welcome teacher Kelly Tully from Echo Canyon School.
Thank you so much for having us here tonight. We are thrilled to have this opportunity to bring coding and robotics to our students at Echo Canyon. Students will be working collectively to examine real-world problems, and then they will apply knowledge of cross-curricular concepts to design solutions. And we are focused on that future-focused learning with them. So thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in the fall to share our impact report.
Thank you. With up to $10,000 awarded to each school, these grants are a testament to the hard work, creativity, and future-focused vision for our SUSD students. Our students are very fortunate to have principals and teachers who are committed to preparing them for the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. Congratulations again, and we would like to award SUSD Challenge Coins to each of the recipients. We can't wait for the incredible impact that they will make with our students. Thank you.
Thank you all. We truly appreciate your commitment to innovation and creating meaningful learning opportunities for our students. Looking forward to hearing that impact report in the fall. And now we're going to return to the musical world and invite Finance Coordinator Michelle Irvin to the podium. And I also like to, while Gold Dust Avenue is coming up, want to say I am always amazed by the talent of our students. How many of you were in Mean Girls? All right, that was also amazing. A mean Regina George mom, Lillian, nicely done. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle Irvin to let everyone else know just how amazing you all are.
Thank you. And good evening, Board Member Hartwells, Vice President Lindsay, Board Members Dr. Menzel and Gladys. It is my great honor to have a moment to talk about these wonderful students and their amazing director, Dr. Sammy Brower. Where is she? Oh, I'm right here. Okay. The Chaparral High School Gold Dust Avenue Singers brought home an incredible win from the Sing Strong New York A Cappella Festival. It is definitely an achievement to get top honors at a state competition, but it's a whole nother different level to win at competing against other top ensembles in the nation. A cappella itself is challenging genre. The choral performance is unaccompanied and requires training and teamwork that pushes the students to the highest level of achievement. There's no piano or a backing track to give a tonal foundation. It relies on their training and teamwork to be successful, and boy, are they successful. These students brought home a second place in New York at a national competition. If that was not enough, Dr. Brower pushes these students another level. This is actually the second year one of her students have received an award for arranging and composing. Can you step forward a little bit? Lillian? So Lillian won, I'm gonna make sure I say it, the best composition at this national composition, right? Best arrangement and composition. So that is outstanding. If you think against all the students that went to this national competition, and this young lady pulled away with the best. So I am so honored to work with you, Dr. Brower, and how she pushes her students to another level and provides these opportunities for them not to compete just in Arizona, but to go to a national level. I would like to take this moment now to bring up Dr. Melissa Sakos. I know we've mentioned this evening about challenge coins, and the spirit of a challenging coin is taking challenges and pushing against adversity. And I feel that you guys taking that next level, going out in front of that, I know you were panicking and scared, but that thrill that you felt when you got announced second and then you won also. So Dr. Sakos will be giving each of you a challenge coin for this incredible achievement. And thank you so much. You're such an honor to be in our district. And Dr. Brower, we're honored to have you as one of our teachers. Amazing. Can we give them another round of applause? While Dr. Sakos is passing these out, maybe you could go to the next slide. I think it's the next slide. This gives me an incredible opportunity and a perfect moment to mention that Scottsdale Unified School District has been named one of the best communities for music education by the NAM Society. NAM is the National Association for Music Educators. This award celebrates school districts for their support and commitment to music education and their efforts to ensure access to music for all students as a part of a well-rounded education. As we come off March, music in our schools months, and enter April, jazz in our school months, we had jazz night last night. I thank the board, Dr. Menzel, and all district administration for their support of the arts and SUSD and allowing me to be part of such an incredible school district. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brower, Gold Dust Avenue Singers, Mrs. Irvin. I couldn't be more proud of Scottsdale Unified's musical and performing art program and the dedication of the students and educators who are part of it. I hope some of you had the chance last week to experience one of our high school musical productions. I already mentioned Mean Girls at Chaparral. The Addams Family was performed at Desert Mountain, and they were just amazing productions. You've got another chance next week when the Drama Dons at Coronado bring Little Shop of Horrors to the stage. You can also find plenty of imagination in our outstanding academic programs, and tonight we are celebrating the amazing accomplishments this school year of one of our high school robotics programs. Dr. Melissa Sakos, Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education, has the honors on this, as well as the news of a state recognition of one of our leaders. Dr. Sakos.
All right, good evening, President Hartwells, Vice President Lindsay, governing board members, Dr. Menzel and Mrs. Wagner. It is my pleasure tonight to celebrate SaberCat Robotics from Saguaro High School. So team 4146, where are you? Come on up. And Mr. Brandt and Ms. Lindberg, please do not be shy. And I believe Mr. Milligan is with us as well this evening. There he is. All right. One of the many great things for which Scottsdale Unified is known is its robotics programs. Beginning early in our elementary schools, students are engaged in robotics and the STEM learning activities they offer. By the time these students get to high school, they are experts in robotic building, programming, and troubleshooting engineering challenges. What's more, they share the wealth of knowledge and experience with our elementary and middle school programs. They host and oversee each December's Lego League tournament, support Saguaro's Sisters in STEM event, build child-size electric cars for disabled children, and this year have taken their new Melody Makers program on the road to our elementary schools to show our youngest students the many ways in which STEM and music overlaps. To say the SaberCats is known in Arizona robotic circles is an understatement. Last month, they were awarded the first Impact Award at the Spring Regional Robotics Tournament hosted at Chaparral High School. Robotics also provides the opportunity for student leaders to emerge among them. And one, Noah Schaup, I practiced that, is one here, a natural leader. At the Arizona East Regional Tournament last month, Noah received the American First Organization's, get ready for it, $20,000 Steve Shanghai, or Shangi, scholarship named after the longtime CEO of local chip maker Microchip. Congratulations, Noah. All right, have we had enough yet? No, I didn't think so. To cap it off this amazing year, the team has qualified to compete in the annual First Robotics World Championships in Houston, Texas. And they leave next week. Congratulations, Saguaro Sabercats.
Congratulations and good luck as you compete in Houston. Thank you, Mr. Brand. Thank you, Mrs. Lindberg. I believe you have one more, Dr. Sakos. Is that correct?
I do have one more. So now, where is our outgoing district athletic director? Mr. Nathan Slater. You know this longtime SUSD leader, our very own homegrown Nathan Slater. He has appeared before many governing board meetings over the past 7 years to celebrate the achievements of SUSD students, athletes with you. Well, now it's time to celebrate Nathan. Nathan has dedicated his entire professional career to Scottsdale Unified. He attended Yavapai, Tonalea, and graduated from Coronado High School, returning to Coronado in 1994 to teach math and PE, and to coach football and baseball. In 2000, Nathan became Coronado's athletic director, serving in that role for 11 years, during which he was named the 4A Conference's 2010 Athletic Director of the Year. In 2011, Nathan transferred to Saguaro, where he served in all 3 assistant principal's offices before being named principal of Arcadia High School in 2014, where he served until 2017 when he was named the SUSD's district athletic director. Nathan's connection to high school athletics found him working closely with the Arizona Interscholastic Association, or AIA. He has served 20 years on AIA boards in the 4A and 5A conferences, and he was 5A conference president, and he is currently sits on the AIA Executive Board. And now, the organization of the state's athletic program, the AIAAA, as it's known, will induct Nathan into the Hall of Fame at its annual conference in Prescott in September. In this achievement, Nathan becomes the 4th SUSD leader to earn this prestigious award, joining Bob Keller from Saguaro, Joe Court from Coronado, and Steve Harris from Desert Mountain. In the world of Arizona athletics, this is a pretty big deal, cementing Nathan's legacy as one of the all-time most impactful athletic administrators in the state of Arizona. Congratulations, Nathan. And I'm sure you couldn't find a better way to celebrate your birthday with us today and be honored with this.
Congratulations, Nathan, and happy birthday. It's truly an honor to see you recognized in this capacity. And we have one more celebration this evening. It will be a first of its kind, and I would like to invite Brian Wilder and Kyle Backus from the Scottsdale Charros to share this first ever award.
Good evening. Adjust this a little bit. President Hartwells, Vice President Lindsay, governing board members, Dr. Menzel, and Mrs. Wagner, we appreciate the opportunity to come tonight. My name is Brian Wilder, and I'm with Kyle Backus here. We're members of the Scottsdale Charros. I will tell you, though, I need to come to more of these meetings because that was awesome way to start it. Like the choir, the announcement, and Nathan Slater is a great guy, so very cool. We're here tonight, though, to announce the inaugural winner of the Scottsdale Charros Dr. John Creekard Lifetime Achievement Award. And I know many in this room are very familiar with the profound impact that Dr. Creekard had on this community, but let me read a little bit about him, and then I'll talk about the winner. The Scottsdale Charros created the award in memory of Dr. John Creekard, who passed away in 2023. Creekard was a fixture in the Scottsdale and Paradise Valley school districts for decades, serving in many capacities, including principal and superintendent for both school districts. He came out of retirement 3 times to continue his service to public education. Most recently, he served as superintendent for SUSD, where he spent more than half of his 40 years in education. From our executive director, who said, "The award acknowledges a lifetime devoted to fostering intellectual curiosity, inspiring critical thinking, and instilling a love for learning. Beyond curriculum, it recognizes an educator's creation of a nurturing environment that empowers students." So without further ado, the winner of the inaugural Dr. Creekard Lifetime Achievement Award is Margaret Cerna. So, come on, yeah. So we're going to be recognizing Margaret at our April 19th banquet with a nice award and a bigger speech. But let me just read a couple things about Margaret real quick. Okay, this is from our executive director again. Margaret is a legend among Scottsdale educators. She is known for leadership, her positive attitude, and her tireless energy. And then from Dr. Menzel, Margaret always puts students first. Her ability to engage parents and unique way of coaching our principals results in constructive solutions for students, no matter where they are on their educational journey. There's no bigger cheerleader for their success than Margaret. So congratulations. Yeah.
Hey, thank you for being here and doing that presentation. The Charros are amazing partners with the school district, and we're grateful for all that you do in support of our nearly 22,000 students, the staff. We look forward to the celebration later this month of our teachers and educators. And Margaret, congratulations.
Thank you.
And with that, we will
Dr.
conclude our
Menzel,
successes. Yes.
I just want to tell the Charros something that happened today. You know how when you have Facebook, sometimes pictures pop up from a long time ago? I have a picture that popped up of John Creekard and I at a Charros banquet. I'll show it to you. So this is for you.
So, moving on to the superintendent comments, I will keep these brief because we took a lot of time celebrating the most important things, the reason why we're here. But last week, we celebrated National Librarian Day on Thursday. And I just want to give a shout out to our librarians and our library resource specialists for all the work they do to instill a love of reading in our students and ensure that our students are engaged with all sorts of diverse reading materials. So thank you to them. I also want to acknowledge our paraprofessionals. Last Wednesday was Paraprofessionals Day, and last week was Assistant Principal Week. The staff in Scottsdale Unified School District are truly amazing, and each one plays an important role in supporting our students, and so I'm just grateful for the work they do. April is Autism Awareness Month, and it's also the month of the young child, and this week is actually the week of the young child. So when we think about our preschool and pre-K opportunities, investing in the lives of children early, all the way through a high school completion, the work of our staff, the partnership with our parents, and celebrating the success of our students is a part of what makes Scottsdale Unified School District such a special place to be. This past Friday, we launched our new podcast called SUSD Spotlight, And the first episode featured Gold Dust Avenue, an interview with Dr. Brower and Lillian Apostolou. I hope that you've had a chance to listen to it. If not, I would encourage you to do so. We have a number of other podcasts on the horizon. I had the joy of celebrating the partial solar eclipse with students at Laguna STEAM Elementary School, and we did a podcast on site with our students to talk about what they were learning, how they prepared to view the partial eclipse safely, and that was very exciting, and that will come out this Friday. And then finally, yesterday, I also had the opportunity to participate and listen to a presentation by Holocaust survivor Risa Stillman at Cochise Elementary with fifth grade students. Our students are provided amazing learning opportunities with people in our community who are willing to give back. Every day you can find something that's compelling, motivating, and reflects the high standards that we have for our students, the support provided by our teachers, and opportunities to celebrate their success. And with that, I'll conclude my remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Menzel. Congratulations to all of our celebrations this evening. That really fills your cup. That was fantastic. We are going to move into the public comment section, and I'm going to just outline kind of the rules of engagement as by reminder. In compliance with open meeting laws, the governing board may not discuss or take action tonight on any matters raised during public comment that are not on the agenda. However, the governing board members may respond to direct criticism, ask staff to review a matter, or that a matter be placed on a future agenda. As a reminder, each speaker will have 2 minutes. Our screen will indicate the time. Please be prepared to close your comments and relinquish the floor at the conclusion of your time. The board asks that each speaker please introduce yourself by stating your name and whether you live in the district for clarity on the record. We thank you for your time and attendance here this evening and your cooperation in following the meeting decorum and protocols. I'm going to read the speakers' names and then the person who will follow. Our first speaker this evening is Patricia Pellet, followed by Jeff Jordan.
Good evening, governing board members, Dr. Menzel. My name is Patricia Pellet. I live in Scottsdale, and I have an amazing boy at Kokopah. Tonight on the agenda is a vote to force out the Coronado High School principal, Amy Palatucci. This is not voluntary. This is from tyrannical birdwell tactics to intimidate her. Also, I'd like people to go to scottmenzelaz.com and see if this is the type of superintendent we want running SUSD. Thank you.
Jeff Gordon, followed by Jill Dunnican.
Hello, board, Dr. Menzel. My name is Jeff Jordan, and I've lived literally 2 miles away from here all my life, South Scottsdale for the past 38 years. And my direction I was going to go originally is changed with this meeting, and it had to do with the challenge coins you guys have. I was reviewing all of the district's superintendents clear back to 1922. And I've noticed that on average, with most superintendents, that most people are here for 4 years. Now, no negativity or anything like that, but I think the point is that we are here temporarily, and our decisions we make, especially for the community that we're in, South Scottsdale is one of them, will have a permanent and lasting impact on the community. And I want everybody, Dr. Menzel, and the board to really take in consideration what changes you're going to be making in the district, in the South Scottsdale, and all of the district. Our students matter, and our industry matters, and what students we produce will impact what we have in terms of industry for Scottsdale going forward. Thank you.
Jill Dunnican, followed by Mike Peabody.
Good evening. I respectfully request an investigation into Scottsdale, or to Superintendent Menzel, for what appears to be the forced resignation of Coronado High School Principal Amy Palatucci. Those close to her reveal that she loved her job and had no intentions of leaving Scottsdale Unified. As a parent, I am dismayed by reports that staff who do not fall in line with Mr. Menzel's diversity agenda are being placed on administrative leave and forced out, while others, such as a teacher who watched porn at school or one who allegedly used mirrors to look up little girls' skirts, are defended and retained. SUSD counselors have planned secret sexuality lessons for so-called leadership camps, and they are still employed. A club sponsor allowed a factually inaccurate anti-Semitic presentation that endangered students, yet still he works for SUSD. Several teachers have asked children if they should hide their gender selection from their parents. They remain employed. SUSD staff who planned use of a gender support plan are still employed. Librarians who order sexuality book kits and promote banned books on morning announcements are retained. Teachers who have shown sex ed videos without parental consent in violation of Arizona law are still employed. Yet Principal Palatucci, who has an unblemished record, who is supported by her staff, and who goes above and beyond to support not only her students, but their entire families, is now mysteriously resigning from a position that she loved. Thank you for investigating this matter and ensuring that Principal Palatucci has the chance to tell her side of the story. Thank you.
Mike Peabody, followed by Jeff Rattay. Please stop clapping. Thank you.
Madam President, Mr. Vice President, board members, Dr. Menzel, cabinet members, I am here on behalf of Amy Palatucci. I could echo everything that the previous speaker said about her, but I will just say this. They're right. Amy is very loved by his staff, by the teachers, by the students. One of the erroneous things that I found was that no parent was notified that Amy would not be on campus for testing, not on campus for a month. We had no idea until we found the resignation letter. I know Amy. I consider her a friend. I'm not here as a friend. I'm here as a parent of a Coronado student that needs help. And Amy has given her that help. Amy has gone above and beyond for this school in so many immeasurable ways. For her to be treated like this, for her to be ridiculed, if you will, to be forced out, because everybody knows she would not resign from SUSD or from Coronado because she loves this community. She loves the people. She loves everything about this school district. One of the things also that truly alarms me, with 30 seconds left, the thought is she stepped on somebody's toes. She made somebody mad because she was doing things that she might not have been able to do. So there's a vendetta. Another part is that, and this one comes from district employees, somebody wants to merge Coronado and Arcadia. Again, comes from a district employee. Please, 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 thank you, by the way, for pulling her resignation. Please investigate this independently with an independent lawyer and get her side of the story.
Jeff Rattay, followed by Dana Fuller. Jeff Rattay, followed by Dana Fuller.
Dear board members, you took an oath of office and are expected to uphold the highest ideals of integrity and trust. I spent 7 consecutive years as a paid head coach in the Scottsdale School District. I was rehired by the principal as the 7th grade flag football coach at Kokopah Middle School. My brother ran the 8th grade program. During the first week of practice, Dr. Menzel's office notified the principal that I would no longer be a paid coach, but could sign a volunteer contract. There was no reason given. Rather than have the entire season canceled on these 32 families, as I was their only coach, I agreed to volunteer. It was an 11-week commitment. A teacher from the school started hanging around my practices. The principal told me that she was considering the athletic director position next year, never coached in her life, and wanted to observe good, experienced coaches. Later, I was shocked to learn that this close personal friend of a board member was given my nearly $2,000 coaching stipend. She never coached the kids and often wore a dress to observe my practices and games. Last week, I learned Dr. Menzel's office had submitted to the auditor's office this lady as the head 7th grade flag football coach. I'm wondering if someone in your finance department was involved in this scheme. Dr. Menzel's office had submitted falsified documents with the intent to defraud the Scottsdale taxpayers. Your lawyer simply tells me I missed the 1-year statute of limitations to sue the district. Then President Sanowski informed me there would be no compensation with a volunteer contract. I expect the school board to do the right thing and pay me. I never missed a practice or game. I fulfilled all of the duties and responsibilities outlined in the governing board's personnel policies and procedures manual for this position. My brother was paid in full. Julie, I'm a 100% service-connected disabled veteran. How do you feel to know that Dr. Menzel stole $2,000 of my money and gave it to a close personal friend of yours?
Dana Fuller, followed by Robert Vodka.
President Hartwells, Vice President Lindsay, and other members of the governing board, Dr. Menzel and Mrs. Wagner. My name is Dana Fuller. I am a mother of 5 Scottsdale Unified School District students, 1 graduate of 2022, and 4 others that currently attend 3 different Scottsdale Unified schools. I was here during the difficult time during the leadership of Denise Birdwell. It was a time with low teacher morale, lots of other situations, corruption. I worked very diligently for months with other concerned parents and classified staff to shed a light on what was going on and push it for a positive solution going forward. At times it felt hopeless, but united we prevailed. Dr. Creekard gave us a gift of stepping in, and Dr. Menzel has continued to provide stability to our district and move us forward to much brighter days. We've come a long way. I have found, I'm not privy to the Amy Palatucci situation, I just want to put that on the record. Looks like there's some work that needs to be done there, but I have found Dr. Menzel to be a thoughtful leader and collaborative. Nobody gets it right 100%, but I am strongly against searching for new leadership at this time. I would rather the time, effort, and money be spent addressing the needs at the site level and amongst our students rather than focusing on administrative duties such as this. For these reasons, I urge you to extend Dr. Menzel's contract for 2 more years. On a different note, I see that the work calendar is on the agenda today. I'm curious about the results of the most recent survey. I don't know if they could glean much information from them. The survey did not allow for strong negative opinions. In fact, the theme closest to disagreement was, "This does not matter to me," when in fact many of the questions mattered very much to me about the academic calendar. But there's no answer that adequately demonstrated that. So I'm wondering if we could have some sort of town hall, another outlet in which we can give feedback to express like our opinions and concerns about starting so early in August. Just with the heat, the kids are kept inside for a lot of their recess time for that month, and so I'm just curious if we can maybe come to a different solution. Thank you.
Robert Vodka, followed by Laura Wieshoff.
Hello, board. I'm with Dr. Menzel. Thank you for listening. My name is Robert Vodika. I am a district resident. I'm an occasional supporter or a volunteer at Desert Canyon Elementary School. I am a husband of a substitute teacher. I am a father of 3 girls at Desert Canyon, one of which was one of the Mandarin presenters. And I am just here to express my support for the teachers, the administration, Dr. Mrs. Mills, and for the school as a whole to continue to support the school and make sure that there are the resources available for our kids. These public schools are the backbone of our communities, and they are crucial for us to continue to support our kids and help them grow and help our communities grow and provide the students and the workforce and the leaders we need in these communities. So I want to continue to support the schools, and I will do whatever I can, and obviously our family will, and I know our community will as well. So I want to thank you all. And Dr. Menzel, I haven't had a chance to meet you. I see you at almost every Desert Canyon event, so thank you for your support, and I do as well provide my support for you for another renewal for your term. So thank you.
All right. Laura Wieshoff, followed by Kim McClure.
President Dr. Hartwell's Governing Board, and Dr. Menzel. As an SUSD parent, year after year, I'm more and more proud of our district. This year, SUSD passed the override easily and has invested $2,000 more per student, keeping administrative spending at just 9% and putting more dollars in the classroom. 75% of our schools are A-rated, and according to the New York Times, SUSD did not suffer the same COVID learning loss as the rest of the country, with SUSD 3rd through 8th grade students a year and a half ahead of pre-COVID national averages in math. SUSD has 4 Flynn semifinalists this year, and the charter schools within SUSD boundaries still have 0. Likewise, this year we have multiple neighborhood elementary schools that have outperformed Great Hearts and Basis Scottsdale charters. Echo Canyon was recognized as a National ESEA Distinguished School, and after 25 years of providing an A+ education, Desert Canyon has officially received the much-deserved designation. DCES has offered a successful Mandarin DLI program for 7 years, and DCMS has hired 2 outstanding teachers to carry the program forward. Our children are thriving. My oldest was recently sharing how well she and her classmates did on their Mandarin stamp test, and my youngest excitedly teaches me what she's learned from math to her research assignments. Governing board and district leaders, I ask that you maintain our current funding and staffing of our DLI program, knowing that the district may cut 21 positions from 30 schools. For our program to thrive, our middle school teachers should be able to focus on carrying out the middle school vision. And with our incoming kinder class, it doesn't make sense for any of our teachers to be responsible for teaching 2 grades. I ask for your continued support of this program and for your continued support of Dr. Menzel, renewing his contract for 2 more years to maintain our district's stability and ensure our students and schools' continued success.
Kim McClure, followed by Arlene Patruno.
Hi, my name is Kim McClure, and I live within SUSD boundaries. I'm a parent of 2 Arcadia students and a volunteer with SUSD. I am speaking to you tonight as a product of the public education system and as a scientist. My doctorate is in chemistry and neuroscience, and my expertise is neuroimaging, using magnetic resonance imaging to measure brain activity in people. At its core, neuroimaging is a balancing act. You want to maximize what is signal, which is what you want to see, over the noise, which is just what it sounds like, uninformative. In practice, maximizing signal and minimizing noise means you collect a bunch of data and then combine it by averaging. The noise disappears and leaves you with high-res images of the brain. I'm telling you about signal and noise tonight, not just because I think it is cool, but it's also an analogy for what's happening right now in SUSD. The signal is SUSD outperforming peer districts on financial and academic metrics. It is amazing teachers and staff, and it is passing overrides. It is accomplishment in sports and the arts. The signal is also my kids coming home excited about learning. It is them figuring out who they are and how they contribute meaningfully to their community. It is them making friends from all walks of life, and it is them surprising my husband and me with what they achieve in and out of the classroom. The noise is everything else. I urge you, members of the governing board, to focus on the signal and not amplify the noise. Focus on the myriad positives happening in SUSD under Dr. Menzel's leadership. Give our kids the stability and education they deserve by seizing the opportunity to extend his contract.
Arlene Patruno, followed by Mike Bengert.
Good evening, President Hartwells, Dr. Menzel, and Governing Board. My name is Arlene Patruno. I'm a member of the SUSD community. And I want to start by bringing up a name that we should all know, Jonathan Kozel. Savage inequalities. What is more precious to us than our children? That's why we're here. As a community member, I would like to say I am here on behalf of Amy Palatucci and all that she has done for our community. I've looked at the values on our agenda, and the values reference Carol DeWick's work. And I'm pleased about that because I have a quote from Carol DeWick, who wrote the book Mindset, which I encourage all educators to read. The hallmark of successful people is that they are always stretching themselves to learn new things. That is the hallmark of what Coronado High School has been doing under Amy Palatucci as the principal. I encourage the governing board to reconsider, and I commend you for bringing her back to where she belongs. And that's the high school. We all make mistakes, and that's okay. That's part of the learning process. So good job, guys, continue. And I applaud you for bringing Amy back. Thank you.
Mike Bingert, followed by Tamra Farah.
My name is Mike Bengert. It's official. With the publication on March 15th in the Arizona Administrative Register, the public is formally on notice. There is no more automatic presumption of exemption from licensure with the Board of Behavioral Health Examiners for school counselors or school social workers in Arizona. School-based behavioral health workers will need to reassess whether they are engaged in regulated activities requiring licensure. School districts will need to consider whether their intervention counseling policies and multi-tiered support services implicate the practice of behavioral health. Parents, please understand, no statutory exemption exists for school-based behavioral workers to practice behavioral health without a license. Certification by the Department of Education is not a license to practice behavioral health. It is an employee classification. Unlicensed behavioral health workers are not subject to the same standards of practice and ethics as licensed ones. In accordance with ARS 32-3286C, unlicensed behavioral health workers may not engage in diagnosing or treating any mental ailment, disease, or disorder, or other mental condition of any person. The unauthorized practice of behavioral health is a serious matter and a felony. If you believe your child has received behavioral health services from an unlicensed person, you can report it by contacting the Arizona Board of Behavioral Health Examiners. Any school-based behavioral health workers, including counselors and social workers, will need to reassess whether they are engaged in regulated activities requiring licensure. Does supporting the implementation of the MTSS, including district-wide interventions for students at risk for academic, mental, and behavioral health concerns, fall within the regulated activities that require a license? Is assessing as part of MTSS the same as diagnosing? I suggest you review ARS Title 32, Chapter 33. Remember, being certified by the Arizona Department of Education is no longer sufficient.
Tamra Farah, followed by Emmy Cardella.
Good evening. My name is Tamra Farah. I am the Director of Arizona Women of Action's Smart Families Network and will address concerns about the Second Step program, which will go to a board vote tonight. At first blush, the Second Step scope and sequence in the board notes appear benign. When you pull back the curtain by visiting secondstep.org, you find the drivers behind the program that appear to lean on questionable science and revisionist history, including systemic racism. Many consider it a myth. The Learning for Justice section tells kids what to believe about sex and gender, which arguably distracts kids mentally and emotionally from a focus on academics and is a discussion for families, not schools. There is also unconscious bias, which speaks to equal opportunity for all, which speaks not to equal opportunity for all races, colors, creeds, and sexes, but to a forced, non-merit-based approach. This is likely to cause great consternation in young hearts and minds, who then worry that they are guilty of it. In summary, secondstep.org boasts its resources help schools implement social emotional learning in a way that, quote, builds on students' cultural assets, critically examines systems of power, and develops better ways of teaching, learning, and being. This sounds like social engineering founded upon a questionable philosophy.
Emmy Cardella, followed by Shay Najafi.
That one? Okay. Good evening, governing board members, Dr. Menzel, Ms. Wagner. My name is Emmy Cardella, and I am an SUSD parent. I'm speaking tonight on two topics. First is the March 26th meeting. Board members Carney and Warner, at the March 9th meeting, you both requested that a special meeting be held so that the board could have a thorough discussion of the budget and that you could get your many questions answered. You've regularly criticized the budget and asked for these sorts of discussions amongst the board members. The March 26th meeting was your opportunity to do this. So I'm confused why Ms. Carney, you did not show up at all for the meeting. Ms. Warner, you came an hour and 10 minutes late. Then when you had your opportunity that you asked for, you had 0 comments and you asked 0 questions of the budget. I hope that you both find the time to watch the meeting on YouTube It was very informative, and it will be useful when you're asked to vote on the budget at a future meeting. The second topic is the opportunity to renew Dr. Menzel's contract. I've been a parent in this district for 14 years. The level of vision and accountability that SUSD has achieved under Dr. Menzel's leadership surpasses anything I have seen. SUSD faces considerable headwinds with a decline in school-age population, persistent teacher shortages, and a tight labor market for classified staff. And of course, the lasting impacts from COVID of absenteeism and division among our community. It's vital that we maintain steady leadership and keep moving forward. Dr. Menzel has broad support of parents, students, teachers, and staff, and the relationships he has built in the community have bolstered SUSD's reputation. Please take up the discussion to renew his contract at the earliest possible opportunity to ensure that we can stay on this positive path. Thank you.
Shay Najafi, followed by Leanne Breckling.
Thank you, Dr. Menzel. Board members. My name is Shay Najafi, and I'm the proud parent of Pueblo, Mojave, and Shap students. I recently learned something shocking. SUSD has had 16 superintendents since 1997, and 3 in just the past 7 years since I've lived here. In contrast, the Littleton School District in Avondale has had only 5 since 1910. Let's think about this for a moment. If you were applying for a job and you found that, on average, employees in that role never remained for longer than a year or 2, would that give you pause? If you were approached with an opportunity to purchase stake in a company, would you invest your money if that company flipped through one CEO after another? I wouldn't. Any organizational leader needs time to analyze systems and budgets, review personnel, research programs, and truly learn how to serve their community. To implement innovative programs, be responsive to outside pressures, and to form working relationships with industries and business leaders, we must have consistency in our leadership. According to the Learning Policy Institute, 10 years of classroom teaching greatly increases the number of days in which educational gains are made throughout the school year, as well as gains in standardized test scores. SUSD knows this, which is why they place an emphasis on retaining our experienced staff. Why would we not do the same for a superintendent? We must maintain consistent leadership to be effective. We are fortunate to have Dr. Menzel, and I encourage you to extend his contract another 2 years. Thank you.
Our last speaker, Leanne Breckling.
Good evening, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I am a Scottsdale resident with 2 kids in SUSD schools. When my first child started attending SUSD in 2018, the district was mired in controversy brought on by Birdwell's reign. There were negative headlines, bad school reviews on Yelp, and principals and teachers were leaving. But under the leadership of Dr. Menzel, the district righted itself, and I never gave it a second thought. I didn't feel there was any controversy at the district level, and until a few years ago, I didn't pay attention to school politics. But I'm paying attention now. For the last 4 years, Dr. Menzel has proven to be the leader that SUSD needs. He has defended himself and our schools from activist extremists that want to destabilize the education of our kids for their own ulterior motives. He has maintained his composure, dignity, and attention on the performance of our schools and isn't interested in playing politics or chasing airtime on cable news. He's a true educator and an effective leader. We have an opportunity to extend Dr. Menzel's contract for another 2 years, and I suggest we take it. It would be a detriment to our children's future to change leadership for someone new when we already have a superintendent who has proven himself over and over again. Starting a new search isn't only unnecessary and a distraction from pressing work, it could result in a Fox News media cycle that I bet a few on this board would love. However, it would come at the expense of our reputation and potentially damage our home values and status as one of the most desirable school districts in the country. We don't need that. And my guess is that no one except for a few media-hungry political social climbers want that right now. Please extend Dr. Menzel's contract for another 2 years and ensure our kids have as many years of stability as possible. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, everyone. That concludes public comment. Do any board members wish to make a comment to correct the record?
It's not a correction of the record, but Dr. Menzel, I would like for you to provide the board a full review of the investigation into Amy Palatucci due to the concerns from the public.
Ms. Stanowski.
Yes, thank you, President Dr. Hartwells. I would like to make a correction of bits of misinformation shared this evening, one specifically from Mr. Rattay, He stated that I had discussed payment for his coaching, and that is false.
Any other statements? Thank you. I also wish to correct the record. There were a couple of speakers at the beginning who made a number of incorrect statements and misinformation, if not disinformation. I'm going to ask that you take those with a grain of salt. All right, we are moving on.
Excuse me.
We are moving on
I have my light
to.
on.
Oh, pardon me, Ms. Carney. Yes, sorry.
Thank you, President Harwells. I would like Dr. Menzel to provide the board a list of our school-based behavioral health workers and ensure that we have all licensed counselors and social workers that are assessing and working with our children. So if you could provide the board a list of those so that we are staying within statute, that would be appreciated.
I'd like to modify that just slightly, as opposed to having names listed. If we could just have an aggregate of numbers of those counselors and/or social workers who are licensed versus those that are not. I don't want any perception of identifying anyone, retaliation. All right, thank you very much. We're going to move into our information discussion items. First up is the presentation of audits and compliance questionnaire for fiscal year 2022-2023. And I'll just point out for the community, we do have an action item on this, but it will be later in the evening so that our auditors don't have to stay through the whole meeting. But we will take a vote after we get through the consent. Ms. Crozier,
Yes.
you'll lead us through this.
Thank you. Yes,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Hartwells, Vice President Lindsay, members of the board, Dr. Menzel, and guests. Tonight we have with us Jennifer Shields, who is with Heinfeld and Meach. Heinfeld and Meach is our contracted auditor that goes through all of our books and financials, and I wondered about that, and make sure that we're in compliance with state statute with our audit. So she is here to present what the audit of the 22-23 fiscal year.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Menzel. Thank you for allowing me just a few minutes to speak with you this evening. I apologize, I'm looking for the mouse. There we go. Sorry. Oh, here we go. Okay, apologize. So thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time this evening to talk about the financial audit for the district. So I'm here to present several pieces of information, all of which you have in your board docs packet, I believe. And so first and foremost, there's a number of communications that are required to occur between the external auditor and those charged with governance, so those of you sitting behind the dais there. One of those items is the audit timeline. So as Ms. Crozier mentioned, we are the externally contracted CPA firm, so the financial statement auditors. So we were contracted after an RFP went out. The district issued a solicitation and we were the successful bidder. And with that began the process for the financial audit. So you can see the timeline up on this on the screen. The audit is not an easy process. It takes quite a long time for both the auditor to perform all the procedures and also for district personnel to gather all of the information that we need. So you can see that everything started in July and then we ultimately issued the audit report in January. So that's the timeline. In terms of the scope of services that we were hired to provide, we were hired to perform an audit in accordance with several sets of standards. Of course, U.S. Generally accepted auditing standards. There's also government auditing standards, given that the district is a governmental subdivision. And then also we are hired to perform procedures in accordance with the USFR compliance requirements. The USFR is put out by the Auditor General for the state of Arizona. And then the last item too is that we perform a single audit in accordance with the standards under uniform guidance because the district is a recipient of federal dollars. So in terms of financial responsibilities of me and my team versus district management,
In terms of fraud, all of the responsibilities to design adequate controls and put procedures in place to prevent and deter fraud, that all rests with the board and management. Our job is to conduct various inquiries regarding noncompliance and any known issues or suspected issues, and to design a set of audit procedures that would uncover material fraud, but we do not opine on anything in that nature. So there was one new audit standard or accounting standard that was required to be implemented this year. In our world, we call that GASB 96, and it has to do with how subscriptions for long-term subscription agreements are handled. And so if there is a long-term subscription that involves a long-term liability, those are now required to be reported on the district's financial statement. So that was a large undertaking to gather all of that information and put that together by the finance office, and they did all of that. So that standard was in fact implemented this year. It did not result in any changes to the district's financial statements. In any set of financial statements, there are significant estimates that may occur, and those are listed on the screen. The largest one is probably depreciation of fixed assets, so the usage of all of your assets over a period of time. For example, a bus, you buy a bus, but it lasts you 10 years or so. And then there are also specific estimates related to employee health and wellness and other insurance needs of the district. So there are estimates that are made by your actuaries for those items, and then also the actuarial valuation for the pension plan. That's probably the largest one, but all of that comes from the Arizona State Retirement System and the fact that your employees here at the district participate in that plan. In terms of audit adjustments, there were no audit adjustments that we were required to report to you that were made. Through the audit process, we also perform non-attest services, which I think is probably the next slide I have. We do perform non-attest services, which involves the compilation of the financial statements and putting those together in the format that's required by generally accepted accounting principles. So we do also assist the district with that. We take your source documentation and then sort of add the adjustments that are necessary for that process to occur. We also assist with the preparation of what's called the Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards, which is the summary schedule of all of the federal expense in accordance with uniform guidance. And then there's a related piece of information that goes onto the federal government called the Data Collection Form. We had no disagreements with management about accounting practices or policies, so that is a good thing to report. Management at the conclusion of the audit provided all of the necessary representations to us, basically indicating that anything that we had asked for in terms of what we needed to complete the audit, management did provide that information for us. And then one of the things, of course, since we are independent auditors, we have a series of rules and regulations and ethical compliance requirements that we have to meet as well. And so we continually assess our client relationships, and I'm pleased to report to you that there were no violations on our end of any violations that would render us unable to be your auditors. So with respect to the actual reports that were issued, there were 3 main reports. One of them, the largest, is called the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. There's a single audit reporting package, and then there's also the Uniform System of Financial Records Compliance Questionnaire. The Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, given that it is like the largest of the documents, it's about 150 pages of financial data and footnotes related to the financial statements. I've highlighted for you some various PDF page numbers if you are interested in perusing that at some point in time. I will point out that page 20 is the Independent Auditor's Report, and I'm happy to report to you this evening that you received an unmodified opinion, which means that no material misstatements were detected in the financial statements. But there's a whole lot of other really good information in the report. It's kind of my life's work, so I hate that I gloss over it, but it's 120 pages of numbers. The single audit reporting package is a much smaller report. This is what's required by uniform guidance. So this report is much smaller. It's about usually 12 pages long or so. This is where that schedule of expenditures of federal awards is. In your case, the district expended more than $27 million of federal assistance during the audit year, which was year ended 23. And so that is much larger than the minimum, which is currently $750,000. So any governmental agency that spends more than $750,000 in any fiscal year is subject to this type of an audit. In particular, I'll point out that there was one audit finding that was noted, a significant deficiency in internal control. We believe that that item has already been resolved, and that is reported in management's corrective action plan in the report. It had to do with some things that happened in the crossover of prior auditor to current auditor. And then the other thing that I will tell you is that the uniform guidance requires that we rotate federal programs for testing for specific compliance requirements, and also the internal control environment which is related to ensuring compliance. So this is an area where we rotate different federal programs. During this particular fiscal year, the 3 programs that we tested were the Child Nutrition Cluster, which essentially is your free and reduced lunch and breakfast program for students. We looked at what's called the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, which it escapes me what that is. It's had to do with 100-day grants and other types of grants that were governed by issued by the governor's office. So the district spent a little over $1 million of that money. And then also what you call the ESSER funds, those were also subject to audit. And just a sneak peek to next year, it'll be audited next year again as well, because the federal government is requiring all ESSER funds to be audited. So those were the 3 major programs that we looked at. And then the last report is the Uniform System of Financial Records Compliance Questionnaire. It's quite a mouthful, but this is, as I mentioned, the questionnaire is put out by the Office of the Auditor General each year. It contains 18 different subject areas. So this is the area of the audit where we focus a lot on state compliance requirements. So this is where we will choose samples to test, say, student attendance, or we will look at things like your student clubs and organizations, your athletic, ticketing and gate receipting processes, and some of those types of things. So you can, that has, it's about, I forget, 30 pages long, and it has over 400 questions that the auditor is required then to design audit procedures so that we can answer yes or no to every single question that is on the questionnaire. So that is quite a lot. Last but certainly not least, I would like to just give a big shout out and a thank you to Ms. Crozier and all of her staff. Everybody that we worked with here at the district was very helpful providing information and preparing all of the information that we asked for. And so that concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to stand for questions.
Thank you very much. Board members, are there any questions? Follow-up clarifications? Very good. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Shannon. All right. Moving right along to our next information discussion item will be a first read of the Cheyenne K-5 math adoption. Dr. Dodds-Karen, are you leading us in that discussion?
Good evening, President Dr. Hartwells, Vice President Lindsay, members of our governing board, Dr. Menzel, Ms. Wagner, our community present this evening, as well as in the cloud. Tonight, Donna Dempsey, our elementary math coach, and I have the opportunity to bring forward the work of the Cheyenne K-5 Math Curriculum Adoption Committee for recommendation for a new curriculum for Cheyenne Traditional School. You will notice tonight a familiar cadence for the presentation as our teaching and learning team works to ensure consistent processes are utilized during the important work of a curriculum adoption. Cheyenne Traditional School has a long history of using the Saxon math curriculum at their campus for their K-5 students.
In the winter of 2022, we learned that Houghton Mifflin Harcourt would be sunsetting Saxon Math. The original end of publication was to be June of 2024. The adoption process was started to make sure that Cheyenne students and teachers would have access to high-quality curriculum for math. Donna Dempsey, our elementary math coach, will spend the rest of this presentation elaborating on the rationale for the curriculum adoption process and our ultimate recommendation that we are bringing forward for board consideration. I'd now like to introduce you to Donna Dempsey, a member of our team you have not met yet. Donna Dempsey, elementary math coach.
Good evening, Governing Board. The curriculum adoption process started in September with the launch of committee recruitment via the district committee website. Shortly thereafter, Dr. Dodds and I presented at a PTO meeting at Cheyenne in October to discuss the adoption process and to encourage committee applicants. Once the committee was formed, all meetings were held at Cheyenne Traditional School. Considering previous board feedback on how difficult it can be to decipher content in multiple products submitted during the application process, when the work of the committee had led to the selection of the top products, a community viewing night for the material was held, and ultimately the vendor presentations were held at the Cheyenne Cafe in order to encourage as much public involvement as possible. It's also important to note that the public display of material was held at Cheyenne Traditional School. While reviewing this timeline, you will notice there is an asterisk under public review of materials. After publisher materials were due for this adoption and products had been received for committee consideration, we learned that Houghton Mifflin Harcourt had decided to continue to publish Saxon Math, copyright 2018, with a stipulation of being available to existing customers only until June of 2027. After learning this, the committee requested that Saxon be submitted for consideration, and on January 19th, Saxon was added to the programs being reviewed by the committee. The committee was comprised of 15 members, including teachers, parents, and 2 administrators. A Cheyenne teacher from each grade, kindergarten through 6th grade, served on our committee. Some of the committee members are here tonight, and to show our support for the time they put into it, we would like them to stand to be recognized. The work of this committee was grounded in SUSD's strategic plan. The goal of this committee was to review and evaluate instructional materials and provide recommendations to the governing board for approval. During the first committee meeting, we reviewed the strategic plan, and the recommendation placed in front of you today aligns with this plan. We wanted to share a few statements from the committee members as they reflected on their participation in the process. Participating on an adoption committee is a big commitment, and I think one member said it so nicely. He said, "It's incredibly fulfilling to be able to join the committee and be a part of the success of our school and our students." The Cheyenne K-5 math rubric is divided into 3 sections. The first section was accuracy and alignment. It included elements such as the alignment to Arizona standards and the teacher-directed instruction to represent Cheyenne's cornerstones. The second section was engagement and ability to meet students' needs, and it included elements such as rigorous learning opportunities and guidance and resources for teachers to scaffold and differentiate for students. The third section was ease of use and support. It required reviewers to consider how the program assessed student learning and how it spirals the previous learned content. Creating a rubric as a committee allows the team to consider the characteristics that are important for students, teachers, and the Cheyenne community. After evaluating the curriculum and learning more about our top products, the committee used the consensus decision-making process to arrive at our final recommendation. This is a process that teaching and learning team committed to developing for consistent use across district committees. It's critical to have in place so that all voices are heard and the committee would accomplish its goal of submitting a recommendation to the governing board for approval. For every adoption, public display is set up and feedback is collected. The display of Cheyenne K-5 math materials was held on Cheyenne's campus. This was done to encourage as many stakeholders as possible access to the materials that were submitted. This slide highlights the community input via public feedback. 49 people signed into the public display space, and 96 entries were collected on the public viewing feedback form. After reviewing 7 curriculums, hearing from the vendors of 4 programs, and discussing the strengths of each program, the committee came to consensus to recommend a 3-year adoption of Saxon Math Copyright 2018 for Cheyenne kindergarten through 5th grade teachers and students. The committee believes that Saxon Math best aligns to Cheyenne's cornerstones. This program spirals previous learning in a way that Cheyenne has seen success with in the past. And additionally, many teachers, parents, and community members shared their support of this resource. On this slide, you will see the recommended curriculum, its cost, and the resources included in the purchase. K-3 will receive consumable workbooks, and 4th and 5th grade will receive hardcover textbooks. The quote includes manipulative kits for each teacher and digital access for a teacher to download copies of resources. The cost listed is what SUSD will pay this fiscal year, and the contract will cover 3 years of resources and access. The cost per student per year is also included. With increases in student enrollment, additional textbooks or workbooks may need to be purchased. In choosing to adopt a resource that Cheyenne teachers are already familiar with, the implementation is simplified from a professional development standpoint. There have only been slight changes made to the resource as compared to the version that Cheyenne currently uses. Knowing that the math standards are not directly aligned to this instructional material, after the materials are received, Cheyenne teachers will work collaboratively to complete a standard correlation and redesign their current curriculum maps. This work will allow them to assure that students have access to the Arizona math standards for their grade level. Throughout the year, we will monitor the success of the new resources through feedback from teachers and data analysis. We can collect data utilizing student performance on common assessments and classroom walkthroughs. While the committee is recommending a resource the campus is familiar with, Cheyenne is committed to academic excellence and ensuring that all students meet or exceed grade level standards. At this time, Dr. Dodds and I can address any questions or comments that you have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dempsey and Dr. Dodds, Karen. Not just for the presentation, but also, just so all of you know, they provided an extraordinary amount of information to the board in advance, and I thank you for that. And I also want to thank the committee members for your time and effort in serving to pick a high-quality math curriculum to put forward for consideration. I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to ask my questions first, so I'm going to attempt to, I did these in advance so that I could meet the 5-minute courtesy time limit here, and then I'll turn it over to my colleagues on the board. So the math adoption that's put forward, typically we have math adoption, any curriculum adoptions are typically 7 years. And my understanding is that is in part to make sure we realize the return on the investment of having gone through this whole process and the professional development, and that's pretty consistent budgetary approach. Is that correct, Ms. Crozier? We typically see a 7-year adoption, not a 3.
That is correct.
Thank you. In the proposal that's been put forward, I want to understand again, 3 years. Now you provided the purchase orders for what that cost would be. The curriculums that were reviewed, big ideas at $96,000 over 7 years would, just some easy math, just under $14,000 per year. Revel was $137,000 for 7 years, so just under $20,000 a year. Math in Focus, $179,000 for 7 years, which is roughly $25,500 per year. And then Saxon is $107,000 over 3 years, which is $35,600 per year. So it's a substantial increase for 3 years, not including the opportunity costs of having gone through the process. So there's the money side of this, which is a question for me in my head. I don't know if you have a reaction to that, but the numbers are not, not great. And then I had a question. There were a number of comments that were submitted. And again, you provided those summary public comments to us. Thank you. You showed the chart here for everyone to see, 96 entries. There's roughly 600 kids in K through 5 at Cheyenne. That's what, 15% or so, if you just assume a one-to-one, one entry per student. Do you think that there might be value in having an opportunity for more parents? I observed that's a cornerstone at Cheyenne, parent engagement, to have an opportunity to comment on this curriculum. One, not just the cost, but my understanding is it's not aligned to the Arizona state standards as they are today. Is that correct?
Board Member Hartwell's a few answers to questions. I think there's a few here. So the question about standards, the product Saxon that we are recommending is not aligned to the current Arizona standards. The product was updated with some graphic changes, but there is a coherence map that we would utilize to look at what standards are taught when, and then identify the standards that are not taught at the respective grade levels and identify supplemental materials to support those standards throughout the grade levels. The cost and the years of the adoption, the reason we are recommending this product with a 3-year is because that is the commitment Saxon, Houghton Mifflin can make for the Saxon product today.
The publisher.
The publisher. And then I think you had another question about parent involvement. I want to thank Principal Kellum. She has involved Donna and I from the get-go, inviting us to PTO meetings, utilizing Parent Square to make sure that parents were aware. And I know, Board Member Carney, that's been one of your biggest concerns. How are we getting this information out to our families? They allowed us to use a room at Cheyenne to display all of the material. Our hope was, we know that Cheyenne is a very actively involved campus. We hoped that when people were volunteering in classrooms, they would swing by 104 and take a look at our product, and they did. But to your point, the amount of people who do come in to view the product doesn't correlate, a one-to-one. The PTO was informed, and they were also big supporters of allowing us time and getting the word out so that people could come to the presentations, which was one of our first curriculum adoptions where we had people present to learn from the reps. So we did make concerted effort, but if the board has ideas of what we can continue to try to do to get more involvement, we're always receptive to that.
And we do still have the materials on display at the MDA and at Cheyenne, and the feedback form's still open, so if parents have other comments to offer, that avenue is still available for them.
And how long is that open?
We have it scheduled through the 30th as of right now, through April 30th.
Okay, so there's still an opportunity for more of the parent community to weigh in on which curriculum. Is it clear that Saxon is not aligned to the state standards? Is that clear to the parents? I'm not questioning what the committee's work here. I'm trying to wrestle with
So
this fact.
when the vendor was presenting to us, one of the questions that we asked was what adjustments had been made, because they currently have the 2012 edition, and so this is a different edition of the book. And so when asked what changes were made to reflect the change in the math standards in 2016, they said that they had a coherence map, but they hadn't changed the scope and sequence of the program.
But
Okay.
to your question,
So the
Dr.
substantive
Hartwell's-
content has not been changed since 2012. Is that fair?
That is fair. To your question, we haven't publicized that it's not aligned to the current math standards.
Okay. It seems like that transparency should be communicated to me. I would want to know that if I'm a parent. Okay, I'm going to, last question, this is about peers. I believe this curriculum has been at Cheyenne, right? So we have peers to Cheyenne traditional identified in the Valley. Have those folks maintained Saxon, or have they
So with the way the
transitioned away?
timeline worked, we all kind of were informed in 2022 in the winter that they were planning to stop publishing it this June. And so a lot of our other districts and other traditional campuses around the Valley were in the same situation we were. We're like, we need a book. The kids need something in their hands. And so I reached out to 14 different traditional academies to ask kind of what they were using now and to see how they had proceeded from it. And no one is still currently using Saxon. So we would be, and I didn't even count them in mine. I did reach out to Basis, and Basis utilized Saxon as a platform to create their own in-house curriculum. So they now have shifted to something that is Basis published instead of purchasing from a publisher. So theirs is no longer Saxon, but may have some similarities to it. But when I reached out to some of our other traditional academies, they had moved into different things like Neely uses Math in Focus now, which is one of the products we reviewed. We talked to Madison Traditional, and they piloted Math in Focus and Reveal, which are two of our programs we reviewed also, and they'll be adopting Reveal starting next year. Legacy uses Envisions. I mean, I can provide a whole list of the people I've spoken to, but we kind of reached out just to see how other people were handling it also. But a lot of them did, in fairness, make the shift before the publisher made the decision to change their end publication date. And we found out in the middle of our adoption process that that was the case. So
Math in Focus is the same publisher as Saxon, is that correct?
that is correct.
Okay. All right, thank you very much for answering the questions. I appreciate it. Colleagues, do anyone have any additional questions? Ms. Carney, I saw your light first.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, and I'm actually very happy to hear that Saxon's going to be able to continue. I know that was very important for the Cheyenne parents, and they were very concerned when they heard that that might go away. So I also would like to reiterate that Cheyenne does have our highest math scores. I mean, they have a higher and highest, so I think that's something to look at, and the parents there and on the committee, we should be able to trust whether it's aligned to the math standards or not. So I also want to know if you spoke with Chandler Unified, because Chandler Unified.
Chandler we spoke with, and they are using My Math in their primary grades and Glencoe in their upper grades, and they're supplementing with the Eureka Sprints. So they did not end up continuing with Saxon after I know the conversation you're referring to.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
And as far as the data goes, we can definitely provide you with a full data report so you can see some of the trends. But we have seen some trends where, you're correct, Cheyenne is a very high-performing school. And for a long time, it was #1 in every grade level, and we've seen some shifts in that trend. And so as we look to reevaluate the program, we're looking at district state level data as one of our avenues to kind of see where some differences lie.
Okay. And the board, we all have the scores, so we're aware of that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Ms. Warner.
So thank you for your presentation, and I'm very happy that this is what the committee decided upon. I had spoken to several Cheyenne parents, and it was very important to them that the traditional school continue with Saxon Math, so thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you. I'm going to pull the thread on the academic performance data, because the data I have looked at, I don't think that's an accurate statement. Can you speak to that just a little bit? You referred to trends. I think we need to be correct about what the data says here.
Sure.
This is important.
And again, Governing Board, we are happy to write something up for you utilizing the data that we are able to access through Dr. Bachna's office. We have seen changes in the achievement as measured by state assessment with Cheyenne as compared to our other schools. And I know that when we speak of the data, AASA currently is a benchmark that we can all relate to. Over time, Cheyenne was always our top performing school. We do see some changes that have begun after the pandemic. There were a few things that have occurred, obviously the pandemic, but prior to the pandemic, we also had a new adoption district-wide for a new standards-aligned curriculum because, again, the math standards changed in Arizona. So we do see a shift beginning after the pandemic. Once the new curriculum was in place throughout the district, we do have other schools who are outperforming Cheyenne based on standardized test achievement for the state of Arizona.
Thank you, Dr. Dodds, Karen. I appreciate that follow-up. And if you could provide the board with the most current assessment comps, that would be fantastic. Oh,
Can I
Ms.
add-
Carney,
Can I
yes.
add to that? Because I was looking at the data when parents were contacting me concerned with losing their Saxon curriculum. And I believe when I'm talking about middle school, they are leading the last scores that they're leading our middle schools. And so that I take into account what we're using in elementary school, obviously matters in middle school. And so I think we need to have K through 8 scores.
Absolutely.
wanna
And the
clarify.
middle school scores are impressive for sure. And
Do they use Saxon?
they utilize the same program that the rest of the district uses. And their team really did use Ready Mathematics with fidelity, and their results showed.
Okay, great. So just to clarify, the proposal that's been put forward is K through 5. 6 through 8 at Cheyenne Traditional is not part of this adoption, and they do not use Saxon.
No, they
use
do
the
not.
district-adopted, state-aligned curriculum.
That is correct.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Sinowski.
Thank you, Board President Dr. Hartwells. My colleagues asked most of my questions, so I appreciate the questions. I do believe it's our responsibility to monitor student success and to utilize our resources most efficiently. So if there are indicators saying the comfy blanket is what we want and the comfy blanket is not best for kids, then I urge us to make those decisions. However, I do also understand and respect that Cheyenne, as our traditional school option, has very unique cornerstones, and I honor parents' interests in not just selecting, but supporting academic curriculum and success of their students. I think that the latter plays a huge element in Cheyenne traditional school success, is a high parental involvement. Appreciate that. I would hope that we are making decisions based on not what we know and what's most comfortable right now, but based on data and evidence, and utilize our resources most effectively and efficiently. So whatever that ends up being, according to the committee, then I respect that. But I also want us to be very cognizant of if we're taking on a curriculum that's not comprehensive according to our state standards, and we have to now find supplemental materials to enhance instruction, that becomes another layer of communication and with parents and with our educators and potentially training. So I say this to you guys as experts, you know this, but just saying this publicly, I think it's important for people to understand it's not as easy as this is what we like. So thank you for your work. I think the data and evidence is really important as we continue to move forward in deciding curriculum. Thanks, that's it.
Ms. Carney.
Yeah, I would just like to end with what I'm trying to say is that it's proving that they're coming into middle school more prepared. And that was my point of that, is what we do through K through 5 matters for our middle school scores.
I think that's true at every school. Okay. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. We will move on to our next item, 6C, the Governing Board Policy KJA regarding booster organizations, a first read. Mr. Buzin, are you going to lead this discussion?
Yes, President Hartwells. Thank you, President Hartwells, Vice President Lindsay, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Menzel and Gladys. So one of the reasons to have an attorney on staff is to provide other employees with clear guidance and rules to follow. Without governing board policy, it's difficult for an attorney to give that guidance. And so that's one of the reasons, at least, that Dr. Menzel and I wanted to bring this policy, KJA, Relations with Booster Organizations, to the governing board. Currently, there is no governing board policy that governs booster organizations in totality. In 2012, after receiving a threat of a lawsuit, which was a dispute about who owned what and what was gifted when and what was not gifted, SUSD's governing board at the time, with the help of Athletic Director Cliff McKenzie, came together to create a comprehensive Booster Club handbook that would assist the district in avoiding disputes and would help create strong relationships with the boosters, the parent organizations, and the district and the governing board. So the governing board adopted this similar handbook back in June of 2012, but it never went forward and adopted a policy. I also, in looking at this, I searched ASBA's policy manuals, and it showed that a vast majority of the public school district governing boards do have a policy just like this that essentially gives the administration the guidance and the enforcement mechanism necessary to oversee boosters and to deal with some of the issues that come up around that. So what is exactly the administration suggesting? So first, the policy. The recommendation is to accept KJA, which espouses the board's desire to support its parents and booster organizations and to encourage community involvement in the goals of the district. So I think there's a sort of two-part gain to having the policy there. Not only does it provide enforcement, but it also encourages the community to come forward. And then the second part of the recommendation, which is to have a regulation in which the superintendent and the district office would encompass pretty much all of the rules that are necessary to oversee the boosters. So that regulation would encompass a handbook. There is precedent for this in other board policy. For example, in JL, the student wellness guidelines give a lot of the specific details to staff and parents, and is published separately outside of the regulation. This would be something that if there were ever any changes to the regulation, it would be brought back to the board for oversight. So some highlights about the handbook approach. The handbook that was submitted to you in your supporting materials indicates some financial oversight and guidance for the booster clubs organizations themselves. On page 4 is a checklist for parents wishing to organize and to follow, and thus the district is supporting booster clubs that are trying to grow and organize. This includes a financial component, as I just stated, which enhances the governing board's oversight and enhances the credibility with the students, parents, and staff. Second component is a purchasing and gifts component. The handbook essentially points booster organizations and the community to policies that the district already has, KCD and KCDR. We're not trying to amend those policies in any way. It just would be a central point for the boosters to see those policies and to understand how to follow them. The handbook would require boosters to go through athletic departments and make sure that it clarifies the transfer of ownership when gifts occur. I think everyone on the board here is aware that the board oftentimes wants to accept all gifts, as do everyone in the district, but they come with different ties and responsibility. As the board knows, gifting creates Title IX issues and other equity issues. It's so amazing to live in this district to see such generosity, but it does require the school district itself to provide oversight and to ensure that legal requirements of Title IX are followed. The same is true for, and this is on page 11 of the handbook, for the funding of consultants and off-season staff. So that particular component talks about conflict of interest rules with district employees and boosters, and this handbook provides some guidance over that. The last thing that I'm going to touch on is it outlines roles and responsibilities for the different organizations. Page 13 has a list of do's and don'ts for the booster clubs, which if the don'ts are followed, create legal and time issues for the district and ultimately harm the educational environment because the staff is focused on those types of issues instead of the things that they're there for and which enhance the educational environment. Another component of the handbook is on page 15. It essentially assists the district in this oversight by requiring the booster clubs to submit annually to remain in good standing. This is an enforcement component that I think is necessary. And there's a protection of SUSD employees so they don't get too far connected with the boosters and misunderstand their roles and responsibilities. That's on page 16. And this notices to the boosters also about their key roles and responsibility. So in summary, this presentation is really just to outline the roles and responsibilities that are included in the handbook. I think it's a win-win for the district and the community to have more oversight and to have the governing board involved. Without it, it can be a headache, but it's still something we are very grateful for, to have such a really amazing community here. I've seen it here in the last 9 months myself. I'd like to thank Board Member Lindsay for assisting me in understanding more about the boosters and some of the issues. He provided invaluable assistance to understanding some things that need oversight from the governing board, in my opinion. And also I'd like to thank Nathan Slater for his service as the athletic director. This handbook already exists. I think having it in a policy just enables the governing board and the administration to really have that enforcement mechanism to make it real, to alleviate some of the issues that do come up. So that's all I have for this stage. This is just a first read of it. I'm here to answer any questions. I think Dr. Menzel is as well. But at this stage, I think there is a little bit more work to do to enhance the handbook. Right now, what we provided you was what has been created over the years. It still needs some edits. This is really just a true first read to bring it to the governing board's attention and hopefully get this going so that we can go back to what was initiated in 2012 and really make it stick.
Thank you, Mr. Buzan. Board members, any questions? Ms. Sanowski.
Thank you, Mr. Buzan, for bringing this forward. Yes, it's long overdue. I'd like to make a suggestion, and I'll leave the words up to you as our council, to add a statement relating to financial expenditures and what the purpose is to assure equitable use of Booster Club funds raised on behalf of our students on the campus, specifically in our district overall. So for example, how are we ensuring that there is equal consideration for males and females sports teams and their needs on any assorted campus in our district? I know we have some boosters that are much more engaged. Some of that is because of the time that individuals have, or their interests are really focused on athletics for their children. So whatever the reasons, I do want us to make sure there is some, whether it's a check the box, do the girls have this as an option if we're spending it on the boys? I know we as a board have made those decisions for lights on some of our high school facilities. If the boys are getting it, we need to make sure the girls' team is getting it as well. So I would like that to somehow be embedded in this policy right now. I did really like and appreciate the statement that athletic coaches were not to be serving as treasurers for the boosters. Rule 1 I learned 30 years ago as a coach was you don't dabble in the funds at all. It goes through the appropriate source and the dedicated source. And so I would like, I really appreciate that. And I also, one more question on this topic before I put this to bed. What are we going to do to train all of our coaches and our building level athletic directors of this, because this directly relates to their work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sanowski. Any other, Ms. Warner?
Does the PTA and the PTOs and the APTs have separate guidelines? So this would not be pertaining to any of those?
The recommendation, I'm glad you asked that, Board Member Werner, is to include in the definition of booster organizations, it's not there in the policy, but this would include PTAs and PTOs.
Okay, so you mentioned something about, raising inequities. So having been part of a football booster program for many years, we were raising over $200,000 a year to have a program function and be able to do what they needed to do. So how do you take that from, and every sport and every fine arts should have a booster because it takes funds to do the extra things. So, so I'm supportive of that. But when you take a football program, when you take a badminton program, the cost of those programs are very different. So when you're talking about raising funds, or excuse me, the inequities, how is this falling in line if you're wanting things to be the same across the board? And I have another question after that.
Well, it's not really a policy or a political issue for me. It's just a Title IX legal issue. And where inequities between boy and girl sports occur, then complaints are made and investigations are had, and the district is responsible for that. So it's best to understand so that even the boosters that are giving know up front what the district is legally required to utilize the gifts on. And so that's where the governing board, I think, can assert its strength and sort of alleviate that issue. I'm not here to tell you that everything should be equalized everywhere. I'm just telling you that, Title IX is a real thing. And when we receive complaints, if we do, we have to investigate them. And so having some clear guidelines out of the gate sort of alleviates that issue.
Okay, so let's go back to football, which is about a $200,000 a year program, or at least it was when my son played here. So, and you take badminton, which is not as pricey. So if you're telling boosters that, or people that are going to donate to football, they're going to have to donate equal to badminton? I'm just trying to clarify here because, parents and people who are involved with their, whether it's band or choir, they work really hard to support their kids and raise funds so that the kids can do extra things inside of their activity.
The intent is not that it would be equal that way. So when you think about equitable, football is an expensive sport. We know that. Some sports, girls basketball and boys basketball, are probably going to have comparable needs and expenditures because they're played on the same surface. They have similar uniform needs, those kinds of things. And so you have direct comparisons when you have the same sport that are both boys and girls. Other sports, your example of badminton, for example, its needs will be different. So what's equitable is to ensure that you're addressing in the system, and Ms. Sanowski talked about the light situation at Chaparral. That's the Title IX consideration. You can't invest in a boys' facility, make it superior, and have a neighboring girls' facility be inferior. Softball field, baseball field, for example. So it's attending to those questions, and we know that there are boosters that have the ability to raise funding. We rely on that. It's really important. This is about ensuring that we have consistent practices so we can ensure accountability, that there's shared understanding of how that happens. And so it's not the same dollar amount. That would be a misunderstanding of the intent. It's really about ensuring that we're consistent across sports and that we don't get out of balance with respect to how those funds are utilized.
Yeah, and to add to that, in my experience, the Office of Civil Rights does recognize the difference between football and badminton and the need of the district to spend, lots of money on football. It's an expensive sport. The equipment's expensive. The travel's expensive. There's more players. Nobody's saying that they should be equal. I don't think.
Okay, that's the way I heard it. And I'll throw cheer in there. It's very expensive as well. Cheer and pong.
Yes, they are.
But now with regards to the PTOs and the APTs and the PTAs, there's a problem here because some of the PTOs pay for staff and aides in our schools. And that is happening at some schools and not the others. Not every school can put together a good PTO, and that, we've tried to do other things where, one PTO can help support another school and so on. But in sports, and I don't know about fine arts, but I know in sports, the booster cannot pay a coach. So how do you have those be part of the same policy when they're doing two separate things?
Well, we're not asking to make any amendments to policy KCD, and KCDR, which has those detailed gifts from the organizations and how they're required to be utilized. Not this amendment isn't, or this suggestion to have KJA isn't to change that at all. So I don't want to say status quo because that sounds kind of negative, but ultimately there is no suggestion to change the current process for gifting for PTOs.
Right,
Does that
thank
answer
you.
your question? Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Carney?
Thank you. Okay, a few questions on this. I'm very confused, I think, on this now. But I'd like to know, did Mr. Lindsay bring this forward, or what? I'm confused on what his role was in this and why you mentioned him. Did he bring
Mr.
this
Lindsay
forward?
and I have had communications like I have with all individual board members, including yourself, and we talked about the things that he's interested. I know Mr. Lindsay is very vocal about being involved and interested in athletics. I think he's probably went to maybe 500 games by now. I think it was at 300 somewhere around December. We had a discussion about some things he was concerned about with sports, and he essentially educated me on Scottsdale Unified and the athletics programs really in a broad way. And so through that, I understood that we didn't even have a policy on this, which, that's why I started off my statement with, if you're going to have a school attorney present, you got to have the rules in order to assist the governing board to enforce, any rules. And so we couldn't even really get off the ground discussing some of these issues because no policy, less enforcement opportunity.
Okay, and I guess the issue is, I don't know the issues as a board member, right? So that hasn't been put forward to me. So I'm not really understanding the impetus of this policy because private discussions have been had. Maybe we can speak to that after, but I'm not understanding the impetus of this policy. So I want to know how this is helping our goal of attracting and retaining families into our public schools, which is our priority, is enrollment, growing enrollment. How is this policy helping grow enrollment, bring people to our schools? Because extracurriculars and sports are a huge part of why people come to our schools.
I want to answer the first question, and that is the governing board within the last few months accepted a gift from Chaparral of the field house that was built more than a decade ago. The building, by all accounts, should have been gifted at the time it was completed, and it wasn't. That led to a number of other questions about, okay, so how do we have some things that are seemingly gifted but not properly gifted per board policy? Then we discovered, well, there was a manual. That work was done in 2012 that helped create parameters and expectations so that you could have some accountability, but there was no enforcement. So then when Mr. Muzin and I had the conversation, we talked about the fact that there's no umbrella structure. So we've got the gifting policy, but we have no board policy that says this is the expectation with respect to those organizations that are supporting our goal and purpose. So if you look at the document from 2012, you see very clearly that the district recognized and celebrated the contributions of the booster organizations. They're critical to our success, whether they're parent-teacher organizations, APTs, band boosters, or athletics. All of them play a critical role. But we also have a shared interest in accountability because at the end of the day, this board is responsible for appropriate stewardship of public resources. Well-intended individuals that want to contribute can create liabilities for the district with respect to Title IX and some other things. And so without an accountability structure then we're at risk. And so that conversation surfaced, and I just used the field house as one of the examples that caused us to start digging, and we've had those conversations. So that sort of led us to this point of saying, we have to go back and say, fundamentally, we need that umbrella policy. Then we can ask the question, okay, what needs to change or be modified in the work that was done a decade ago? What's good, what can be different, and are there other models that might help inform that so that we can have the synergy that's required between the school district and the community to create those opportunities for our students?
Okay, so I'm surprised to hear tonight that this applies to APTs and PTAs and PTOs, because I did not read that in this. And I also want to know why you removed the word parent from the model policy. The ASBA model policy repeatedly said support from booster/parent organizations, and you removed parent, and I'd like to know why.
It says parents in the first line. Some of this, I didn't make any amendments to the, actually, I did make one amendment to the very last part of it. I said codified as regulation KJA-R. That was the only amendment I made because that was not in the ASBA policy, but I did not make any other amendments, which is why I provided a clean copy and a black line with no black line, because this is exactly how it came from ASBA.
Okay, because when I went on and looked on ASBA and looked at model policy KJA, it lists support from booster/parent organizations 3 times. That was removed out of this, and that's just my question. So the model policy I looked at is obviously different than the one that you looked at, but.
And this is just a first read. Any suggestions to deal with some of the issues that you're bringing up? Obviously, we're here to listen, here to meet with you, every individual board member, or my apologies, I did intend to provide a board memo with some of the impetus. It is very tricky to talk about some of these things because, as the board knows, they are, evergreen issues. And so I will still provide a board memo under attorney-client privilege for you, but I wasn't able to get it done before yesterday at 5, so I apologize.
Well, I think for all of us, right, so we're all on the same page, so we all have the same information, which I know is an issue. Lastly, I think I'm going to end on this. Between now and the second read, we need an updated, this guideline book that has a lot of outdated information. So before we can even consider it, if we can have the correct information throughout here that we're actually going to be approving. And I would like to have that printed for each of us. That'd be great.
Ms., I want to ask a clarifying question. So what's being put before the board is the policy from which the guidelines and the handbook will flow out of. What appeared to happen as a reaction to a situation in 2012, correct me if I'm wrong, as I understood it, was that they started from what should have flowed down out of a policy. They just started with the handbook, as opposed to really building the infrastructure so that there was a solid kind of compliance network from which then the guidelines would flow out of. So this was kind of backwards. So we're trying to reverse engineer this situation. So it almost confuses the issue to just even have the guidelines there, because they'll need to probably be updated in some way if the policy is accepted by the board. So we need to start with just the policy. This other stuff is not the task. Right, step 1 is to get this policy in place from which a regulation, from which the guidelines/handbook will flow. Correct?
Yes, that's definitely correct. And just historically speaking, what it appears is that it was a one-off adoption by the board, and then nobody ever treated it with any intention after that. Although I did major in history, I don't know all the history of Scottsdale Unified, and I did some digging to try and find it out. I talked to multiple witnesses here, all of which forgot what happened between 2013 and 2020.
Well, you could be forgiven for that. That's okay. Ms. Carney, more questions?
I'll just end on, but we do have KJA / R on here, which I know the board does not approve regulations, but we are, we have a regulation here in front of us that says the superintendent is required to develop procedures pursuant to policy KJA, which can be located in the Scottsdale Unified School District Booster Organization Handbook, found at, and there's nothing there. But I'm just,
Because
yeah, I
it-
think
yeah.
I'm confused because
Okay.
there's so much information here. What,
I agree. So let's peel the onion back. That regulation is going to just be a template, right? It'll have to change once a board adopts a policy, whether it's this one or amended version thereof. Then you'll do the regulation. Then you will do the guidelines. That's how it should work in healthy governance, not the reverse. So I don't think we even need to see this regulation. It is confusing the matter. I think you gave us all the information because you were collecting and doing all your diligence, trying to reverse engineer a situation that should have happened in 2012. And it didn't, and that's okay. But we're going to fix it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I provided the regulation and the handbook so that you could see the issues, which this 2012 board identified and really came up with some good guidance on, but I wanted to make sure that the board had it so that you could ask questions about it and determine whether any of the rules that are in there, that this board would. So we definitely have to go back to the drawing board and fix the handbook before it's fully adopted, but at this point, the proposal is to adopt KJA, the policy.
So first step is just the policy. So let's just focus on the policy, and then this regulation will be next. But we really can't build a regulation if there's no policy. That doesn't make sense.
Correct.
I don't know if that helps, Ms. Carney. That's how I'm understanding tackling this issue. But Mr. Lindsay.
I was just going to say, in the last week, we found a possible solution, an alternative with Chandler. I don't know, maybe you want to give a quick rundown, but it may solve a lot of these. And Chandler's highly successful, and they invite collaboration with their booster club, so the boosters have a voice.
So Chandler has an umbrella organization, so all of the boosters, whether it's a parent-teacher organization or an athletic booster club, they're all a part of this umbrella. So they have some independent work they do, but they're all a part of shared governance with respect to that and accountable to the same kinds of reporting structures, ethic expectations, and sure, it's different between athletics where you have AIA guidelines that you have to follow and what's happening at an elementary. But they have an umbrella structure that's designed to do what we're contemplating here. So I think there's something we can learn, and whether it's that model, hybrid of that and what we saw before, or something else that we may discover, I think that there's a way to put something together that meets the needs of our community. But again, I agree with Dr. Hartwell's first step is to have a policy that would then guide the work that we do administratively.
Mr. Lindsay.
I was just going to say, maybe in the memo, you can also outline some of the issues that we uncovered so the whole board can see them. What I've noticed going to athletic events is we're blessed with very gracious booster clubs, raise a lot of money, and historically there's been a lack of oversight. And so when you're raising a lot of money and competitive, sometimes you can go astray a little bit. So it'd be helpful for the district to provide some oversight and some guidance, provide some help.
All right.
Well said.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reason. All right, we are moving on to item 6D, Joint Education Subcommittee Report. This was at the request of a board member, and I am not going to go through it, but in your board docs for the board members and the community, there's a document entitled Council's Subcommittee on Education Accomplishments and Goals, and you are welcome to read that at your leisure. This was prepared by the mayor's office, so if you have questions or concerns, please direct them to him. All right, we are going to, Ms. Sanowski.
Thank you for bringing that forward, President Dr. Hartwells. I just want to also put out into the community that this Joint Education Committee is really like a mayor's organization, a mayor's committee. So the work that is completed there is really with the input of SUSD and Scottsdale Community College and other stakeholders. And it's not something that we necessarily are responsible to drive the outcomes. Is that correct assessment?
That's been my experience as well.
Thank you.
Ms. Carney, did you want to add?
Yeah, I wanted to add that we need to be aware that the written statement of purpose for this advisory committee says it's compliance with with Governing Board Policy BDF, which we no longer have. So that needs to be corrected.
Noted. Thank you. All right, very good. Let's go ahead and do our consent agenda, what's, the 99% that's left of it. We have some special guests we'd like to honor, and then we're going to take a break because I need to go to the bathroom. So I move to approve the consent agenda as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Lindsay seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 5-0. And with that, I'd like to recognize and congratulate two of our incoming principals for school year 2024-2025, Mr. John Andrews. As if you do not know, Mr. Andrews, the illustrious Mr. Andrews, is a current assistant principal at Desert Mountain High School and will be stepping into the principal role in the fall, filling some very big shoes left by Dr. Lisa Hirsch, who is retiring and leaving us. Congratulations, Mr. Andrews. And we have Miss Brittany Walker, who will be our incoming our new Copper Ridge principal. Congratulations and welcome to the SUSD family. All right, and with that, we are going to recess for 5 minutes. We will convene at 8:26. backwards. So we're going to start with item 7K. And I believe two different board members asked for this one to be pulled, both Ms. Carney and Ms. Sanowski. So either one of you wish to start with your comments on item 7K, the approval of salary schedule for all employee groups, including classified, certified, special service providers, and administration. Ms. Sanowski, you'd like to lead us off, please?
Thank you, Board President Dr. Hartwells. Under K, in regards to the contracts for administrators, I'd like to learn better about the differences in work expectations between director and coordinator positions. Specifically, art and athletics. As many of you know, that has been a concern of mine, those positions. As they both have oversight of students and programmatic success as their main objectives. So what is that difference?
So I'm going to invite Ms. Wilson to talk a little bit about this, but when you look at our structure of employee classifications, coordinator and director, they're on different parts of the salary schedule for a variety of reasons, some historical, some very intentional, but I think Ms. Wilson can talk about where we are in the process.
President Hartwells, Board Member Sanowski, so specifically on this item, we're talking about salary schedules. If I understand you correctly, your question is about the responsibilities, about the job description for the various...
Not yet. So on the salary schedules, there are addendums that include the specific assignments, and they show both of those positions in different
Understood.
sections with different labels, yet it seems they're simpatico.
I appreciate the clarity. So that is part of the compensation study that we are in the process of right now, which they actually just got started to review all of those different positions with our comparator districts and other, some cities as well. So that is part of what we're looking at right now. Agreed that there are some, to your point, coordinators and directors in some of those particular grades, and that's why we're undergoing the compensation study.
Okay, and then I would like to make a suggestion moving forward. It doesn't have to be right now or today, but my suggestion is to streamline the directors because they're in boxes and they're in different boxes. If they're having that title of a director, it makes sense to me that they are in the same box for pay range. If they're as valuable from one position to another and the success of outcomes of our students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carney?
Thank you. While we're on the subject of the administrative position, I just got a question on the 12-month administrative position classifications and salary range sheet. Under N, I see Director of Special Education listed twice, and I'm just wondering if that's a typo, which I believe it is, but...
If it is the exact same title, then I'm guessing that is a clerical error. But let me double check. I'm sorry. It is typo? Thank you. It looks like it's there twice, so we can
Okay.
Edit that.
That's perfect. That wasn't why I pulled it, but while we were on it, I had noticed that, so I thought I'd mention it.
Thank you.
What I wanted to talk about and what I wanted to learn is about consecutive years of experience as a certified employee. We've had longtime valued teachers in our district reaching out to us, asking why we use consecutive years of experience instead of total years of service. And on March 29th, I emailed Dr. Menzel inquiring about this, and he said he asked Shannon Crozier to analyze this, yet I have not heard anything. So I'm wondering if Dr. Menzel or Shannon or Alexis can speak to why we use consecutive years instead of total years of service.
Board Member Hartwell's and, President Hartwell's, Board Member Carney, we discussed this in interest-based negotiations with the certified team and last year, and at the time, that was the recommendation to look at consecutive years of service in Scottsdale Unified. We have some employees who had a break in service that were less than 1 year, and we've honored those employees and not penalize them for a break that was less than 1 year. If they did leave Scottsdale Unified for more than 1 year, then they are not getting the consecutive years. It is something that we can certainly take a look at. I think we'd have to analyze every certified teacher that has perhaps left us and then come back to see what the financial implications would be if we were to make a change to that.
Yeah, I think that we need to do that because we've got valued teachers who have had circumstances causing them to have to leave the district for a period of time, and then they've come back and they're having to start over. And I think that this is, it negatively impacts them. And one of our goals is to retain, right, our quality teachers. And so I'm really concerned about this, and I would like to see us have a discussion on switching that language. So that was my concern with this.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Very good. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. If there is any other, Ms. Sanowski, yes.
Thank you. For the record, it's that one particular individual has been given that credit, right? But also, to be clear, it's not that they are starting all over on the pay scale. It is that they are put into a different additional compensation visible in Table 2 of the addendum, correct?
There's one employee who had a break in service for less than 1 year. They were placed accordingly on their education and experience. There wasn't much of, any change, if I recall, in the salary. That person's additional compensation was corrected for this current school year to reflect no break in service. So anyone that had a break in service for more than 1 year, however, would reflect the 0 to 8 year band of additional compensation.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Any other questions, Ms. Kearney?
So were you just saying that what I said only affects one employee?
Only one employee had reached out that that particular situation was relevant. And I was clarifying because there are multiple tables in front of us on the same document. There are actually 4 tables. And I just wanted to make sure that the general public understood that it wasn't they were starting over on Table 1 for their salary, but they were actually in a different category potentially for their additional compensation visible through Table 2.
Correct. And President Hartwell's and Board Member Carney, that would be something that would require further looking at research to see about employees, other employees that did leave the district for more than 1 year and have since returned.
Yeah, I just think, our goal is to retain our talented longtime teachers, and I want us to do everything we can to make sure they're compensated properly. Thank you.
Just to clarify, I think Board Member Carney, I made a note, you had requested a discussion at a future governing board meeting, but I'm just going to clarify that that discussion would need to come after an assessment, and I would argue budget impact assessment. Correct? Did I heard that correctly? Is that fair? Okay, so the timeline for 45 days, we're in the throes of finishing out the school year here. So once that assessment's done in HR, then we'll get it on a future board agenda. Okay, very good. All right. No further discussion on item 7K. Then I'm going to move to approve item 7K, approval of salary schedule for all employee groups, including classified, certified, special service providers, and administration as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Tanowski. All those, actually, I'm going to ask for a roll call because I'm having a hard time hearing each one of you. Ms. Warner?
Aye.
Ms. Carney?
Aye.
Ms. Tanowski?
Yes.
Mr. Lindsay?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. That's a 5-0. Thank you very much. We're going to move to item 7I, recommend approval of revised job description of District Athletic Director. Ms. Sanowski, would you like to lead?
Thank you. After many discussions on this topic, I feel it is relevant that this position also include oversight of physical education, grades 6 through 12 in our district, as they often utilize similar staff members for coaching, and they also use similar facilities from instruction versus extracurricular activities. I have asked for this in the past, and I do not see it. Please bring it to my attention if it's an oversight. But I do not feel this is appropriate to have under the Fine Arts Coordinator's job.
Dr. Menzel, would you like? Oh, Ms. Wilson, yes.
President Harwells, Board Member Sanowski, the district athletic coordinator does not oversee the fine arts program, the supervision of that and the employees within that. Not now and not proposed in the revised description.
I think the question is the
There's-
other way around,
Yeah.
that right now, physical education is overseen by the fine arts coordinator.
Correct.
And I think the recommendation from Ms. Sanowski is that 612 PE teachers would fall under the district athletic director.
Correct, thank you, and I apologize if I
Sorry.
misspoke.
So what I would invite Dr. Benson to do is to talk about the curricular aspect in terms of supervision of that part in teaching and learning, because the athletic director function is one discrete situation. And I'm not arguing for or against the recommendation. I just think that there's some nuance that you can speak to.
Good evening, all. Appreciate the question. There's some history with where that has landed over the course of Scottsdale. In large part, when we did pre-post tests the better part of a decade ago, in conjunction with pay for performance dollars, there was an awful lot of support to our PE teachers to also create pre and post tests based on standards. And so we got very familiar with standards years ago. So it's moved around. At one time, it was associated with a director of curriculum. We don't have a director of curriculum position at the minute. And so that we've had lead teachers, and we still use lead teachers to help us with the standards, and that which we have at the high school, department leads. We've reinstated the high school department leads and enlisted their help this year too. So there's various layers of leadership, but we had done our homework last fall when some of these questions had been posed, and at the better part of the districts across the valley, the athletic directors typically don't oversee the PE part, but there is coordination with whomever is because of the shared uses of spaces and equipment. So that there's a very natural connection there. So I think it speaks to a very important need that you've identified. It certainly doesn't need to land on the lap of our fine arts coordinator. There are other options we can talk about. So it could be tucked into this position, knowing we would need more support from the teaching and learning area to make sure that we are aligning our instruction to the standards and expectations of the course.
May I? Thank you, President. Dr. Hartwells. Dr. Benson, I appreciate that information. Where does it land then, right now?
So it is with our fine arts coordinator. Michelle has the K-8 part, and we've had some shared responsibility at the high school level with our current athletic director based on conversations from the previous board presentation that was a couple months ago. So there's been more interaction there. But yes, I want to make sure that we're recognizing and valuing the work that our coordinator of fine arts has done, because her relationships with our teachers is pretty significant. And so She uses our lead teachers that get a stipend for this and coordinates much of our early releases. So she's done a great job, so I want to make sure that we're not situating this as a deficit conversation.
Not at all. And actually, it's in defense of her good work and understanding that sometimes when we overburden great employees, they get burned out. And so I'm not okay with this sticking with fine arts. It does not make sense from an instructional standpoint. It does not make sense from a facility usage standpoint, and I'll leave it at that.
Can I add, we did have this discussion in looking at updating the job description and agreed that the description doesn't prohibit moving that responsibility to the district athletic director, but the organizational chart for next year is something that we'll be working on with a great deal of intentionality now that we know some other changes are in process. And so it gives us an opportunity to think about where this properly lands. But we didn't want to put it in there and then discover that really there might be a better place, or the bifurcation of that, the elementary or the K-8 component versus the high school. And since that the other moving parts and pieces haven't been settled, we didn't bake it into the job description as a requirement, but it's not prohibited based on the way the description is written.
Ms. Sanowski.
Thank you, President Dr. Hartwells. Dr. Menzel, does that mean we're approving a job description that we are going to be hiring someone for beginning July 1 that would potentially be adding this to their plate after the hire?
That would be correct, and we've contemplated that as we will be screening candidates and determining what the background experience and talents that they bring to the table are. So that'll be part of our calculation as we're considering the best candidate to bring forward for the governing board to approve.
Thank you, Dr. Menzel.
Thank you, Ms. Sanowski. I'd like to add to the PE conversation, if you could also contemplate the relevance of oversight over the sports classes. Alrighty. Any more discussion on the proposed job description? All right. With that, I am making a motion to approve the recommended revised job description of the district athletic director as presented in board docs. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice President Lindsay. Again, we're going to do a roll call. Ms. Warner?
Yes.
Ms. Carney?
Aye.
Ms. Sanowski?
Nope.
Mr. Lindsay?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so that is 4-1. And I would like to just reiterate the promise that was made to expand the conversation going forward. I think a good point was made about bringing in somebody new and then shuffling the deck on them. All right, very good, thank you. We are now going to move to the last consent agenda item. That was 7H personnel action items, but only the item with respect to the resignation of Ms. Palatucci. Ms. Warner.
Thank you. So I would like to motion to table this item for lack of information. As elected board members, it is, or at least my job and my goal, to keep good educators and to make good faith effort to build a community and the community of schools. And due to the outreach of people through email, through phone calls and other communications, the concern with what happened with Palatucci, the reason for the tabling is the board needs to get a top-down review of this investigation, including dates of communication, timelines, evidence, ensuring policies and procedures were followed, and evidence that due process was awarded to Ms. Palatucci. This can all be handled in an executive session, and if Ms. Palatucci would like, she could be present as well. Do you have a second?
I second that motion.
All right, we have a motion on the table. Ms. Sanowski, would you like to speak?
Can we have discussion?
We may have discussion, of course. Would you like to comment further?
I absolutely would. I do not think we can base good governance decisions on personal interests or hearsay or personal bias. We do not pick and choose adherence to our policies or our laws for our students or based on whether we like them or not. As I understand, Ms. Palatucci was directly included in her due process, and out of respect of facts and her privacy, she has decided to offer her resignation. I understand that we are not compelled to share personnel information and at times cannot share specific reasons why individuals choose to make their decisions other than staying with SUSD. This is Ms. Palatucci's story to share, and we have been tasked to apply policy despite hearsay or pressure from the community seeking to better understand what happened. We are tasked to oversee the best interests of our educational institution based on facts and data, and as I said, not on hearsay. That's all I'd like to say.
Thank you. I'd like to continue. We have no facts or data. That's why I had asked several times for an executive session tonight so that we could have a discussion as a board to understand what happened. We have very little information to no information on this, and I was denied the executive session, as well as I had asked for Ms. Palatucci to be notified of my request, but that also was denied. So it is our duty as elected board members to have proper information and to know what's going on, and we do not have that, and that is a fact. We do not have the information on that. We need it, and that is why I seconded the motion to table this until we can get together in an executive session and understand what happened to this abrupt resignation that's for December 31st, 2024, and I don't even know why. We don't even know why. So no, we need it. We must table this and go into executive session to understand the facts.
Ms. Warner?
Yes, so, and in fairness, and I had also asked for information, which we've received in under previous investigations, that doesn't violate the privacy of the individual. But there's too many irregularities here. I've had conversations with Menzel, and in fairness to this board, we do make decisions, and we are held accountable to the decisions on the things that we vote on. And I think that it's very reasonable to ask to table this, just so we can have a conversation in executive session about it.
Dr. Menzel, do you have anything you'd like to share?
So information has been shared with the governing board. And the thing that I would point out is that it's not common for the governing board to question anyone's resignation. So I understand that there are questions here about that, and there are a lot of rumors that are circulating within the community. I also know, having been in the superintendent's chair for a very long time, that with partial information, people make all sorts of conclusions that, absent the full story, may lead to something that's misinformation. And so I would respectfully ask that the governing board honor the request of Ms. Palatucci and act accordingly. I do recognize the whole situation makes me sad, but at the end of the day, we have a resignation in front of the board, and I believe that we should honor the request of the individual.
May I?
Ms. Warner?
Thank you. So you've been a superintendent for a long time, but never for such a district as this, with this amount of students and staff. And it is my understanding, per conversation with Alexis Wilson, that people who are not going to be renewed or may be terminated are offered the opportunity to resign, which she stated in the audit committee. And my concern is that that is what happened here. And so I would just, for the board to make an educated decision when we vote on this, I don't think it's too much to ask to table this, to have an executive session around it, so that everybody can feel good about what's happened here. So my motion stands.
Ms. McLennan, would you like to add anything?
Madam President, members of the governing board, you have a motion to table on it. I would suggest you vote on that motion to table.
We're going to do a roll call. Good. Ms. Warner? On the this is a vote for the motion to table.
Yes.
Ms. Carney?
I'd like to explain. Sorry, I'd like to explain my vote. I second to that motion only if we can go into executive session as a board to discuss what happened, because we don't have the facts. And if there is misinformation, then it's your job to fill us in so that we do have the information, and then we can make an educated decision. Right now, we cannot do that, so I am a aye for that motion.
Ms. Sanowski.
For me, this is a tough decision to make because I choose to recognize an employee's request. I don't know all of the details, and I don't think that's relevant because I think that becomes micromanagement of the board. And I feel that if Ms. Palatucci has offered her letter of resignation, that I would recognize her interests to be able to move on. And with that, I would say no on tabling.
Vice President Lindsay.
No.
And I'm a no. That motion fails, 3-2. I'd like to make a motion to approve the line item to accept Ms. Palatucci's resignation under consent item 7H. And we'll do a roll call, please. Ms. Warner?
No.
No. Ms. Carney?
No.
Ms. Sanowski?
Yes.
Mr. Lindsay?
Yay.
And I'm a yes. That motion passes 3-2. All right, we are going to move on now to our action items. Item 8A, acceptance of audits and compliance questionnaire for fiscal year 2022-2023. And we had our presentation earlier, had an opportunity to ask questions. Per state law, this has to be a roll call vote as well. Is there any additional discussion or questions that board members have? Ms. Carney?
Yes, I had a couple questions that I'd like to ask of Shannon, if I may, on the USFR report. Under credit cards and P cards, it's listed here that we have 4 district credit cards. But you and I had a discussion that we have 2 credit cards, so I just want to clear that up.
Yes, the district has 2 credit cards. One is under my name, one is under Dr. Benzel's name that are used district-wide. They're held within the MDA or my office for staff to use if there's sometimes there's required purchases that have to happen that require a credit card. So they would come down to the district office and check that out. Those stay at the MDA or the district office locked up in a safe. I will need to go back, I guess, and look at that a little bit more in that there are 2, those are the only 2 credit cards.
Okay, well, that's what you and I had discussed, but
Yeah.
on the USFR report, it says 4 credit cards. So if you
I will go back and
clarify that.
Yeah.
Is there any chance, Shannon, that that could be reflective of the fact that 2 had to be canceled and reissued this past year, and so you ended up with different numbers because of the fraudulent activity that was discovered?
It is a possibility. We do have, there was fraud activity on both of the cards, so they were both canceled and reissued. I'm sorry, I will go back and clarify that.
Yeah, there were charges that were not authorized by the district that were discovered due to the postal situation. So that's what I'm remembering. So I just wonder if that might be the explanation, because both of those had to be canceled and reissued.
Okay, yeah, that would make sense, but if you can clarify that and get
I will
back to us.
definitely.
And then the only other question I had is under financial reporting. Where is it? Oh. Number 1, it said the budgeted expenditures reported on the AFR agreed with the district's most recently revised adopted expenditure budget. No, the answer was no, and it says budgeted expenditures reported on the AFR did not agree to the most recently revised expenditure budget for Fund 300/399 by $948,205. Could you just clarify what that is?
Yes. The AFR was, when the budget is done and submitted, those numbers then pull into the AFR. Interestingly, those numbers are actually locked in the AFR. Like, you have to go into a cell and unlock them to change it, which is a practice that we know not to do. So we're not sure how a number got changed. There are multiple people who have access to the file, so we have now moved it so that that is strictly under my or the Director of Finance control. It's her practice. She knows we don't unlock those cells. So she herself is a little baffled as to how the number got changed or where in the process that number got changed, because they are locked cells in that format. So there's a little of, she's flat out said, I don't know how it happened because I know not to unlock those cells. So it has to do with additional budget coming in after the grant got amended after the AFR was done. But again, those are locked cells. It's not supposed to be able to be changed. So we have made a correction so that this does not happen. There will only be 2 of us who have access to that file.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions by board members? All right, I move to approve the acceptance of audits and compliance questionnaire for fiscal year 2022-2023. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Sanowski seconds, and we, again, by state law, have to do a roll call here. So Ms. Warner, if you could lead us off.
Aye.
Ms. Carney.
Aye.
Ms. Sanowski.
Yes.
Mr. Lindsay.
Aye.
And I am also an aye. That passes 5-0. We're moving along to item 8B, second read and approval of secondary world languages and elementary dual language immersion curriculum adoption for 2024-2025 school year. This is our second read, so are there any additional questions or comments? Ms. Sanowski, your light's on. I didn't. Okay. All right. If that is the case, there are no additional questions or comments. I'll move to approve item 8B, second read and approval of the secondary world languages and elementary DLI curriculum adoption for 2024-2025 school year. Is there a second?
Second.
Vice President Lindsay seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes 5-0. Moving on to item 8C, second read and approval of the secondary science curriculum adoption for 2024-2025 school year. Are there any follow-up questions or comments since our first read? All right, hearing none, I make a motion to approve the second read and approval of the secondary science curriculum adoption for the 2024-2025 school year. All those in favor, please say, second?
Second.
Vice President Lindsay seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right, that motion passes 5-0. And in our amended agenda, item 8D was removed. So we're moving on to item 8E, second read and approval, Governing Board Policy HA regarding negotiation goals and priority objectives.
What happened to D?
We removed it. It got pulled at the very beginning.
Oh,
They
hold on,
moved.
sorry, I missed that.
It was removed to be put onto the April 30th governing board. Yep. Any comments, Ms. Kearney, on
I just
8E?
thank you for allowing me to butt in when I'm not really supposed to be right now, but I did have information I wanted to give to the board members regarding that policy, so maybe if I could do that, that would be great before the next meeting, because I had mentioned to you. About-
Certainly. We removed it tonight, so I don't.
recommend emailing it.
Yeah.
Well, I can't email it, so
Can you give it to Nick? Is that?
Yeah. Is that
Bring
how
it.
you want me to do it? Just so
Yeah,
you could better
please.
understand what I was talking about, how other districts have the board members appoint committee members, and this could be a collaborative.
Okay, if you could present that to, Nick, that would be great, and then he could share it safely with the rest of us.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Are we ready for AE now? That HA? Any comments on the second read for policy HA? All right, hearing none, I move to approve the governing board policy HA regarding negotiation goals and priority objectives as presented this evening. All those in favor, we need a second, please?
Second.
Ms. Sanowski, ready to leave. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, 5-0, motion passes. And then to our last action item here, 8F, approval of Second Step Middle School project. And I believe that we have a presentation. Ms. Cron?
And Dr. Michael will also be.
And Dr. Michael, thank you for joining us. You had family obligations this evening. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, President Hartwells, Vice President Lindsay, Dr. Menzel, Gladys, and Governing Board. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and share with you an overview of the Second Step project so that you are able to make an informed decision about whether or not this is an opportunity that would benefit Scottsdale Unified School District. So the Second Step project, well, one thing that I guess we've all heard is that supporting the whole child or the social emotional needs of a student also benefits their academic achievement. So the U.S. Department of Education and the American Institute of Research have combined forces and want to have a better understanding of if Second Step supports the academic achievement of our students. And so SUSD was invited to participate in a study which would really be looking at whether or not that is true and helping us have a better understanding. So if we were to move forward with this opportunity, we would be provided with 3 years access to the Second Step Middle School curriculum, which is all web-based. We would receive significant training for our educators, for our staff. So not only would they receive in-person training, they would also be provided with PD opportunities online, with videos that they could share with their students, that videos they could watch themselves. We would also receive funding for data collection, data analysis, and dissemination. So this would not be our first time participating in a research project with the U.S. Department of Education and AIR. Back in 2015, we participated in the Multi-Tiered Systems of Support research project, where 5 of our elementary schools received that support training to implement NTSS. What we saw was a significant decrease in behaviors through that study. We learned a lot of information that we've been able to take with us and continue, that implementation across the district. Over the years, we've seen a significant decrease in office discipline referrals. However, what we have seen in the last 4 years is an increase in office discipline referrals specific to middle school. And so one of the questions or concerns is we know that our students have been taught those behavioral expectations. We know that they understand those behavioral expectations, but what we're seeing is that they are struggling to engage in productive conflict, right? They're having a hard time kind of navigating the social relationships, regulating their emotions. And in turn, we've seen that increase over time with office discipline referrals from our middle school students. So the Second Step, implementing the Second Step really looks at how are we supporting both those social, emotional, and behavioral needs of our students, and is that going to have an impact on the academic achievement and that climate and culture? We know that if students behave in class, that teachers have more time to teach, right? Less distractions, so students are, again, able to focus on their learning. And it creates more of that positive environment, right? Students are able to take more risks because they feel safe, they feel connected to school. And so it really aligns with our strategic plan. Second Step is not new. It has been around for several years. Back in 2017, they did revise their curriculum. So if we were to move forward with Second Step, we would be looking at the implementation of 4 different units. And so within those units, you could see the first one focuses on mindset and goals. The second one is developing a positive sense of self. Third one is thoughts, emotions, and decisions. And that fourth one is managing relationships and social conflict. So each of these units consists of 6 to 7 lessons, where each lesson takes approximately 25 minutes to implement. So they have communicated with us that they would be very willing to customize the implementation based on our needs. So if reviewing these lessons or these materials, and there was something in there that we felt would not be appropriate for our community, or people were concerned about, we would be able to block those lessons so that we wouldn't be able to access them. Our teachers wouldn't be able to access those lessons. There's an additional 200, optional advisory activities. So if a teacher, again, is having a difficult time where, they're seeing that students are having a hard time persevering when tasks become difficult, they can pull some of these, ideas or lessons for their students. This, again, might be perceived as a benefit because one of the issues that we have had is that, teachers are, it's coming from a good place, but they want to address some of these needs in their classroom, and they're creating their own lessons. So this is something that would be, again, we would agree to participate in. We would have eyes on it. We'd be able to block something that we didn't feel is appropriate for our community. But teachers wouldn't be left up to their own devices to be able to, create lessons. I've included a link for that full scope and sequence so that you guys are able to take a look at the different lessons, and again, just share if you have any concerns. So second step is not new to SUSD. It has been implemented for several years, or was implemented for several years in our special education programs. And it has also been implemented since 2017 over at Ingleside. I will share with you, and I think this is interesting, is when we look again at our data where we've seen that significant increase in office and discipline referrals specific to middle school. When we look at Ingleside, we've seen the opposite. So we've seen a significant decrease in office discipline referrals since 2017. So I'm not saying that it's, only because of the implementation of second step, but that is something that Ingleside is implementing that is a little bit different from some of our other middle schools. When we look at the average number of referrals per middle school student across the district, it's 0.08 referrals. At Ingleside, it's 0.02. So again, you can see a significant decrease in some of those behaviors. So next year, we will be implementing that intervention and enrichment period, and recognizing that the behavior and academics are closely tied together. Our schools, our committees are looking at what material are we going to provide our teachers with to support students during that period. We want something that is easy for them to access, which again, second step provides those lessons for our students, or for our students, so for our teachers, so they wouldn't have to create that material on their own. The research study does ask that we participate by teaching at least one lesson, one 25-minute lesson a week. If for some reason a teacher was not able to teach that 1 week, they would be able to, break it up into 2 lessons, the following week. But they are very, flexible with that implementation. Over the last 2 years, our MTSS STAT committee has had several conversations regarding behavior and the implementation of, MTSS, and then looking at, is that enough, or are we seeing other areas of need in regards to, again, supporting kind of that social, emotional, behavioral, or that whole child. And the area of concern is, specific right now to middle school. We've got that time carved out during the day. And so one of the proposals of our MTSS committee was to look at different, opportunities or different material that would be available for our teachers. So this is another area where it's kind of actually a perfect opportunity. It presented itself at a perfect opportunity. So we would be looking at perhaps buying, the materials, and instead in this situation, if we decide that it is, could be beneficial to our community, we would be receiving the material for free through participating in the study. So the timing of it could not be more perfect to at least have the conversation and decide whether or not this is something that could benefit our community. So with that, I want to just turn it over to Dr. Michael so he can share with you a little bit more about what that implementation has looked like at Ingleside, and share with you real experience from being hands-on and the implementation.
Thank you. I usually don't try to speak at this time of the evening, so I commend all you guys for doing this regularly. But yeah, so I think Shannon hit most of the points. First of all, good evening, everybody. But I think the thing that I like about Second Step, and it was already there when I got there, and I did some research today, and what I was told was a former assistant principal, when Dr. Thuman was here, brought it on because they had experience with it at a previous district. And just like many things in schools, I'm sure it was in response to all the relevant topics that are covered within the units that they saw at the middle school. And so we've had it, I believe, for 5 years. And what I like about it, especially because of previous experience in a different district, is whenever you see things that you're responding to, we ask teachers to create curriculum. In a previous district, basically teachers were given a pretty substantial amount of resources and told to create some kind of comprehensive education for our students, right? So Second Step, it's ready to go for our teachers, so they log in, the resources are there, the lessons are there. So that's one of the primary things that I appreciate about Second Step. And then the second thing is the relevance. It hits all the things that our students experience in the middle school, huge transition from elementary school to middle school. And so a lot of things covered in there are very relevant to our students. So with that, if there's any other questions, I won't say it's perfect, but the reason actually I want to go back, the reason I think we've seen the declines and the discipline data is because of the people at Ingleside, our assistant principal, the staff. Curriculum is just as good as the people who are teaching it, so we have a lot of good people at Ingleside. So,
Thank you. Board members, are there any questions or comments? Ms. Carney.
Thank you. All right, Shannon, I've got many concerns on this. You know that, and both of you, I've had conversations with regarding this, and I appreciate that over the past couple years. But honestly, it's impossible for us to make an educated decision on this when we can't review the curriculum. I was not able, I asked to review it. I've not ever been able to review it. So I'm not sure how we can vote on this when we can't review the curriculum. I haven't been able to see it. So I've had conversations with you, like I said, regarding my aversion for this intervention period amidst the school day and what's happened to my own child personally. So also, we've heard from teachers, they want to teach their subjects of expertise from bell to bell. And the more that we're making them learn and do is taking away from academic classroom time. So I'm concerned with that. But I've got two major questions here. I want to know, can parents opt out of this curriculum and can they review it?
So yes, if this is something that we did decide to move forward with, we would have that 60-day review period where parents could put eyes on the curriculum and then opt out as well. So just like our novel, I think it would be a similar process, right? Where if there is a novel or a study that parents did not want their child exposed to, we would provide an alternative activity during that time period.
Okay.
And so that is, those details would definitely have to be worked out. So we haven't gotten that far. Right now, we've just been presented with the opportunity, and we'll make a decision whether or not it would be of benefit for us to continue to explore, and then we would be able to AIR has communicated, because I did share that there would be concern, right, from some community members, and how do we address those concerns? Are we able to put eyes on that curriculum? Are we able to block or customize, lessons based on the needs of our community? And they did communicate that, yes, that would be possible if we did choose to move forward.
Okay, I think that's the concern, is I have not been able to review it as a board member. So can families review this curriculum for their student and opt out? I think if we're going to move forward, we must have that. And I had to do my own research looking into this. On the second-step-study.com website is where all this information is that I found on my own. And there's some concerning things on this that I wanted to address. It talks about for academic years, these 3 years, researchers will collect the following data: 1 teacher survey at the beginning and the end of each academic year, 1 activity log 4 times throughout the year. So once again, this is more for teachers to do, so that's a concern. And then my major concern is that there's one student survey at the beginning and end of each academic year. But surveying students without informed consent from the parent is against the law, and it's against our board policy JRR. So how are we addressing that? Our kids cannot be surveyed without parental consent.
And we did have a conversation with AIR and the project leads around that concern. They did say that we would be able to opt out of that student survey. They've also addressed that this would be more of an attraction versus edict. So perhaps if we do decide to move forward, we would not require that all of our teachers participate. If they are interested, they did mention that there would be, small stipends, for participation and for that data collection, for their time to participate in these surveys. So that would be, again, something where we would have to have more conversation around it just to understand, the logistics and whether or not that is possible for our school district.
So I'm thinking it sounds like we need to table this item to get more information and be able to review it as a board if we're interested in doing so.
Dr. Menzel, yes.
So I just want to clarify that we were invited to participate in a research project that's not going to cost any money. So tabling it might end up meaning that we don't have the opportunity to participate. An alternative would be to move forward with conditions, to say we need to be able to go through our curriculum adoption process so that there can be a proper review of what's there, to your point that parents haven't been able to see it, the board hasn't been able to see it, that we can address those other conditions like the survey question because we've got to comply with Arizona statute. So an alternative to tabling it would be to indicate that we could move forward with the stipulation that these other components are met. Alternatively, the MTSS B team has been looking at what other resources, because there's a need that's been demonstrated. Those other things would cost money. So there's an opportunity here that if we can customize this, we can get something to meet that need and save the district dollars. So my concern about tabling is that we lose the opportunity, and then we're going to come back to the governing board to ask to spend money to support those needs of our students when we might have been able to do it with no cost.
Yeah. Thank you. And I did anticipate that there would be some concern. And so I did talk, and we are in a time crunch where they need us to respond sooner than later. And they did agree that we would be able to put conditions into that letter of commitment.
Ms. Warner?
Thank you. So I think there might be a breakdown in the communication between your staff and administration here. So I have some notes from the concerns of the staff that teaches this. So, and I'm just going to read it verbatim of what I was told. Second step requires you to go in chronological order, making it difficult to teach as they feed from one to the next. It is grade specific, which makes it a logistical nightmare for elective teachers, specifically with multi-grade levels. The topics and content are uncomfortable to teach students. Families and teachers will have differing views on how and what they feel about the topics and subjects. That's key right there. The questions are very personal that they ask for discussion. Here's a benign one, but for example, has anyone ever started or heard a rumor? So then the students either hesitate or they participate and have no problem blurting out rumors and causing issues. The visual examples, the topics seem childish for the grade levels that they are supposed to represent. It is also a pain to make copies and handouts that go with each, which usually just gets recycled the minute they are done writing them. So it's a waste of resources. For only being used here and there for supplemental SEL, it doesn't seem cost effective or productive. I understand this is coming for free. What it costs with the stipends for the teachers to teach it. Teachers would rather focus on their academic lessons than planning and preparing for the second step lesson. There's a difference between working to support a student who has specific needs when it comes to social and emotional, whatever it might have transpired in that child's life, versus telling and training them on how to act or be social as a whole. Questions asked bring up feelings and emotions in students, and the teacher is not equipped to deal with that. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. And I don't know if, Dr. Michael, if you want to respond to that, just in, again, with hands-on kind of experience and working with teachers, if they've shared some of these concerns with you, or if that's something, again, I appreciate you sharing that feedback with us.
Well, first of all, it's one data point. I'm not dismissing it, but it's one data point. I think what's being lost here is that, you know what also disrupts learning? Are behavioral issues in the classroom. You're observing some statistically relevant impact on mitigating against disruptive behaviors. You indicated, Dr. Michael, that you don't credit 100% this approach, and I think that's fair. I think that's honest. I also trust that your staff, if there is concerns, you'll be accessible for those to be communicated to you. And I'm sure that they are. I'm sure you're all learning together. You've rolled this out for 5 years. That's a long enough time to see if it's efficacious or not. And what it suggests, I'm not saying it proves it, but certainly suggests there might be something there. This red herring of distraction from academics, behavior is essential in attitude to academics. So I don't want that lost. I thought the proposal was a constructive compromise of, look, we want this crafted to the way that we do things here. And they said, okay. So that sounds great to me. Anybody else?
I'd like to make another comment.
Ms. Warner?
So it is rude to dismiss the voices of the staff that have
I
not reached
didn't.
out to you.
No, you
So-
are mischaracterizing what I said because it's convenient.
No,
I am
so-
not. You cited one data point, and it is not good governance to react to one piece of input. We need to
Well-
look at this more broadly. So let's be fair here, okay? You may
This is
continue.
from multiple of your staff and staff across our district. And like I said, there's a breakdown in communication between staff's comfort in coming forward and speaking truthfully about these things. And what I read to you was from multiple people, and these are concerns that they have, and it is taking away from their teaching their academic subjects. And like you, I'm also elected, and I represent the people that elected me here and our students and staff. So I am going to speak. I will speak, and I will bring forward the concerns of the people that reach out and talk to me. So these are the concerns that were brought forward, and I'm going to hold firm with them on that. So, and because I do take their concerns seriously. Thank you.
I mean, I can speak. I can try to speak to that. Those are concerns that have come up, and our staff do communicate that. And so, like I said, second step, they don't pay me. I'm not here to, get it out there. So my belief has been, as a principal, that we use the best resource available until something else comes along. And right now, I do believe this is the best resource that I've seen for these kind of lessons, right? And hopefully Ms. Carney will testify. I am willing to circle back on anything that's not appropriate or a good fit, and we've made modifications if we have to. And then to the opt-out question, we've done that in other areas, and we would do that here too. So,
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Michael. Ms. Carney? I'm sorry, did you have your light on first?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, Ms. Sanowski, yes,
First, the
apologies.
4 seconds. Thank you. I actually had the ability to come and watch a second step lesson as part of a visit to your campus, and I didn't know I was going to be seeing that. So it was a pleasant surprise, because in my experience, if you can give kids any additional tools to deal with personal issues that inhibit their ability to learn, that's a win for us. And if that includes conflict resolution, that's going to free up more instructional time for teachers to address curriculum and core subject area. I did have a question. You had mentioned, Shannon, that behavior office referrals, you said 0.08 versus 0.02. Was that per day number of kids?
No, for year to date. Yes, so if you take the average number of office referrals per middle school student from year to date, it would be.
Per middle
yeah,
school
per
student
middle
year
school,
to date?
yes.
Okay, thank you. I like the idea of consistent resources relevant to student concerns, especially if we can do this through, without an expense to our district. This seems like a win-win for students. You know, students can get out of these lessons what they need to, and if it's going to help instruction, I'm all for it. Thank you.
Ms. Carney.
Could I just ask you to clarify, define red herring and what you meant by that?
That's not agendized, so we'll keep moving. Do you have a question about second
Well,
step?
I'm just trying to understand.
No, you're
what-
trying to be dramatic. Can we just stick to the point here, please?
Okay. Because it has affected me personally and my family and my child, so I would like to know. Which middle schools will you be implementing this?
So it would be on a lottery system, and half of our middle schools would receive second step year one, and half would not receive second step year one. After that, we would be able to use second step across the board.
Okay, I just think we need better details on all of these things that we've heard tonight. And like I said, when we can't even review the curriculum, I just have a huge concern with that. So thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much for your presentation. And Dr. Michael, I know you rearranged your family schedule to be here with us this evening, so we sincerely thank you and your family. All right. I would like to make a motion to approve the acceptance of participation in this program with the condition that the district's curriculum approval process be followed, and that the inclusion at the Ingleside campus, or whatever campuses it would be used, also use the parent opt-in process that's available for other programs on campus, all of our campuses. So those two conditions.
I'd like to second that motion as amended from the original agendized item.
Ms. Sanowski seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed, please say nay.
Nope. No.
That motion passes 3-2 as amended. Thank you. All right, we are now on to governing board reports. Are there any board members who'd like to share a governing board report? Ms. Sanowski.
Sure, I would love to. Thank you, Dr. Hartwells. Through my observations, I've actually had the privilege to see our Sex Advisory Committee do huge, important work under the guidance of Dr. Benson. Thank you, Dr. Benson, for doing such great leadership in that advisory committee there. Also was able to attend the proposal community meeting for the 68th Street proposal here at Coronado. The meeting took place with many community members participating. SPC, I was able to attend one of their meetings, and it was on volunteers and chaperone engagement on our campuses. And then also, it was really great to go to Cochise during their Young Authors Day. If you haven't been able to do that at some time, I suggest you do that. It's amazing. The whole campus gets out and reads on blankets, and there's someone from every grade level on a blanket with the parent volunteer as well. Attended the Scottsdale Family Arts Festival at Sky Song, and then was able to go and recognize Echo Canyon staff and students that did a great job and earned the AEF award. That celebration was top-notch at Echo Canyon. And then visit to Kokopah Middle School just to see what's going on there at their campus, and then attended the Desert Mountain High School Baseball Senior Night. So it's been a fun month of engagement with SUSD, and that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Sanowski. You've been busy. Would anyone else like to share a governing board report? No? All right, I'll share a few words. First, again, I want to congratulate all of our honorees this evening. That was a really fantastic night of celebrations. We're very proud of everyone's accomplishments and grateful for all of you for being you. Really. So I did have the pleasure of attending the robotics competition, the first robotics regional competition that was held at Chaparral High School over spring break. You heard our award-winning Saguaro Sabercats. We also have a mentor here in the audience for the Chaparral Firebird team. This is really a fantastic example of learning by doing in the sciences, technology, engineering, math, art, business. They do business plans, they do fundraising, finance, teamwork, collaboration, leadership. One team they were like ambassadors across the valley. It was fantastic. So I would thank to all the volunteers. It's predominantly volunteer driven, actually. Parents and businesses that had supported our students through their journey and continue to journey on to Texas. I also attended the first Blue Zones School Sector Committee meeting. I want to thank Patty Bilbrey and her team Awesome for hosting us over at Nutrition Services Headquarters at Yavapai Elementary School. And the second meeting of the calendar year with the City of Scottsdale's Joint Subcommittee on Education, where we did hear from actually an SUSD parent alum who seeded and continues to grow the FLC robotics teams across the valley. And that was very nice. And some compelling research in workforce development and how high-paying jobs are at the ready for students who participate in these robotics programs. So I was really encouraged to hear about the impact grants for the students at Redfield and Echo Canyon. And with that, I will end and we can move to future items. Do any board members wish to request any future items? And I will just note, Ms. Carney, I do already have your requested discussion on the continued years of service versus total years of service. Okay.
And I also have another item. On March 18th, I had requested an executive session for today's meeting for the board to discuss BDG-EA General Counsel evaluation. So I'm again requesting that this executive session is scheduled to discuss this evaluation as a board at our next meeting on April 30th.
I just want to point out for the community, the executive session to review the general counsel's performance is not required. Mr. Buzan does not report to the board, and the board members have been invited to submit their feedback to Dr. Menzel, who performs the evaluation. We do not perform the evaluation. I do believe some board members, including myself, have submitted those to Dr. Menzel already, and by board policy, as has been communicated, the evaluation does have to be done by April 15th. And that's a date certain that's in the policy. So we can do an April 30th discussion, but it will be after the fact. So I would strongly encourage you to share your feedback so that it can form the evaluation that is done by Dr. Menzel.
Right,
to
I had
General
requested
Counsel.
that for now. I would like to understand, and I had emailed you asking you why you're.
Today you emailed me. Ms. Carney, I don't know who you emailed on March 18th, and this is not agendized, that's right. So this is,
But, okay, I'm making my request for this for next meeting. That's just what my request is, again.
and Ms. Sinowski.
Thank you, Board President Dr. Hartwells. As all of us know, we have been inundated with calls from our public to extend Dr. Menzel's contract. I ask that we place this discussion of his extension on the agenda for our next meeting of the governing board. And I will complete the written format. I have it partially completed. I just didn't know if that goes to Gladys or does that go to you, Board President? Dr. Menzel?
Dr. Menzel.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So just to clarify, the future board agenda item is to discuss Dr. Menzel's contract renewal / extension?
Correct.
Contract. All right. Vice President Lindsay. All right. Ms. Warner. Yes.
Thank you. I'd like a full report, for the board to get a full report on the status of the visitor check-in systems that we approved last year. How many are up and running and in use, and what is the result and feedback from staff and parents? I would like Dr. Menzel to present to the board his calendar for the last 14 months to be printed out, as he serves on 8 boards: the GCU President's Advisory Board, Scottsdale Chamber, Blue Zones, the ASA Legislative Committee, Center for Model Schools, Vice President of Community Celebrates Diversity, Vice President of Guppy Mac, and the Scottsdale Community College President Advisory. I'd like to review time spent away from our district. Lastly, I'd like an investigation into the HR department and their investigations, particularly with the assistant superintendent in charge of that. A full investigation from top to bottom for all of the people that resigned or were given the choice to resign over being non-renewed or terminated. Thank you.
So I just want to remind all of the board members that according to board policy, these future agenda items have to be requested in writing. I think that information
follow up with an
was.
email. Thank you.
Yeah, and that went for everybody, not just you, Ms. Warner. And then also an association with the relevant KPI so that we are staying in bounds of what we are here to do. And I believe all of you had received that information about, 2 or 3 weeks ago from Mr. Buzan. So I'd appreciate that you follow up in writing, and also in doing so, I'm hoping it also will articulate kind of more clearly what the charge is, what the ask is. All right, very good. I have nothing to add to that. Let's move on to our dates of the upcoming meetings here. The next meeting is Tuesday, April 30th at 6 p.m. Will be a special governing board meeting at the MDA, and followed by Tuesday, May 14th at 6 p.m. regular governing board meeting here at Coronado High School, and that will be another one rich in celebrations. There's no further comments or suggestions. I will move to adjourn this meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Sanowski seconds. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right, that motion passes 5-0. We are adjourned.